Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto becomes Beast Tamer Chunin Exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Jarek Gray and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. What had started as a mild October night became one of the most tragic days in the history of Konohagakure. The Kyubi no Kitsune, greatest of the 9 Bijou, had destroyed a large section of the village. Many had died, civilian and shinobi alike, though the largest loss was Namake's Minato. The Yondaime Hokage of Konoha had used a forbidden sealing jutsu to lock the Kyubi inside of a newborn child, even though the cost was his own soul. Despite the importance of the Yondaime and his powers, the vessel of the sealing was the true hero of that night. October 10th was henceforth a day of mourning, with the people refusing to see the truth of the child. This child was Uzumaki Naruto, the biological son of the Yondaime. This fact was kept a secret, however, and those close to Minato were forbidden from taking Naruto in. It was believed that the other hidden villages would attempt to assassinate or kidnap the child if his family was known, or if his status as Jinchuriki of the Kyubi was discovered. The Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, had allowed knowledge of what happened to the general public. It was to be what he considered his second biggest mistake. The old man had believed so strongly that the people would see Naruto as a hero, it nearly broke his heart to realize that wasn't the case. In an attempt to rectify his naivety, he had proclaimed it high treason to speak of the Kyubi locked inside Naruto. He hoped that the next generation would grow up unaware, thus seeing him as the same as everyone else. That too would not happen as he hoped, rather, parents would warn their children to stay away from the energetic blonde. His early years threatened to leave him ill-adjusted, his lack of caring interaction setting a course to make him hateful and unable to tell when someone did care. He was blind to subtle displays of affection, and his mind and body were both malnourished. The worst to happen was again on October 10th. The matron of the orphanage he was in demanding he leave on his 5th birthday. As luck would have it, this was a blessing in disguise. 3 days later, the young boy would find himself in the office of the Sandaime, one of the few people that was nice to him. Gigi, I don't get it. She kicked me out, said it was dangerous for the rest of the kids for me to stay. I never hurt nobody, and Naruto trailed off, tears forming in his bright blue eyes. Hiruzen sighed, doing his best to comfort the sobbing child in front of him. Only one mistake weighed heavier on his heart than exposing Naruto's status to the public, and that was only due to the betrayal he felt anytime he remembered it. Naruto, I'm sorry. I might be able to do something, but you won't be able to stay at the orphanage again. Give me a minute to think. You can lie down on the couch by the door until I come up with something. Is that all right? Naruto nodded, lying down while the legendary shinobi rubbed his eyes. Now, the tired old man could give Naruto an apartment to live in, but that would leave him alone for a majority of the time, the exact thing he wanted to avoid. In one timeline, he would do so. There were none that knew Naruto or would take him in that he could allow. His weariness would cause that decision. In this continuity, however, there was another option. Moments after Naruto laid down, one of the other few people that had treated him well before arrived in the Hokage's office. Guy Mato, the shining green beast of Konoha, dashed into the room, a shout of "Yash!" catching the attention of the room's 2 other occupants. Guy had once been given the mission to watch Naruto and make sure that no one told him about the Kyubi. Unlike most shinobi, Guy was a supremely emotional man. When he had seen Naruto hide in the woods for a training ground and break down in tears from his treatment by the rest of the village, he had deviated from his mission parameters and spoken to the boy. He had even taken him to get some ramen when he asked the boy if he wanted anything to eat. Food was a great way to cheer people up, and the people at Ichiraku Ramen were some of the few that treated Naruto well. Of course, Naruto had stared dumbly at Guy's eyebrows for nearly 10 minutes before the garishly dressed man had snapped him back to attention by shouting how it was unyouthful to ignore him. The next minute had been Naruto trying to puzzle out what would possess a man to wear bright green spandex and orange leg warmers at the same time. In the end, he had decided that being a cool ninja meant you could wear whatever you wanted, and went to get ramen with the loud man. That had started a regular meeting to get ramen every week, which was as much as Guy was willing to eat ramen. It wasn't good for a regular diet. Hokage-sama, I have returned from my mission in Mizu no Kuni. It is as we feared, the Mizukage has become the epitome of unyouthfulness. Hiruzen gained a glorious plan as he looked at Guy, the intellect that had made the man famous as the professor before his power had taken precedence, and he had become the shinobi no kami making itself known. He had suspected Kirigakure for some time already, but he could actually fix one of his many problems now. Naruto took the time to greet the eccentric shinobi while the Hokage was lost in thought. Hey Mega Eyebrows. You missed ramen this week. I had to come here to find out you had a mission. Naruto tried to work his small child magic and puppy eyes and attempt to guilt Guy into buying more ramen than usual next time, but the Hokage interrupted his efforts with a fully polished plan. Guy, I have something else that needs help, if you don't mind? After a quick nod from Guy, Hiruzen continued. Naruto here has been removed from the orphanage, and I don't have anywhere to put him right now. At least, I can't let him be anywhere without adult supervision. Since you two know each other already, I want you to take him in and watch him until other arrangements can be made. Yash! I would be beyond happy to help our youthful Naruto for as long as you need, Hokage-sama. I might even teach him some of the secrets of youth while I'm at it. Naruto's mouth dropped in surprise as Guy took his trademark nice guy pose and his teeth pinged with light reflected from the cosmos. Hiruzen had gotten used to it and managed to restrain his eyebrow twitch at the physically impossible display. Very well, Naruto, I'll come visit you too when I have something permanent set up. Try to behave in the meantime, eh? Naruto nodded frantically, amazed at his luck getting to live with one of the few people that liked him. Even if it was temporary, it was much better than he had expected. He wasn't exactly sure what the Hokage was talking about with behaving though. He'd never done anything worth worrying over. Guy brought Naruto to the apartment he lived in, after buying him some ramen. If Naruto was going to be living with him, the boy would be eating less ramen and more healthy foods, particularly meats and vegetables. Naruto already ate enough fruit when he could, but he had way too many starch in his diet for a prospective shinobi. Still, Guy had been gone for the regular ramen meeting the week before, and he would rather run 500 laps around Konoha on his hands while reciting aloud the tenets of youth than fail to keep his word. This is my home, Naruto. For as long as you stay here, I want you to consider it yours as well. I have a schedule for my training and meals, and after mid-morning post-breakfast training I go look for missions. I won't take any long-term missions while you're here, but I will take a few short ones. If you wish, you can follow my schedule and observe my training and eat with me. If you are youthful enough, you'll even be able to learn something from my training. Naruto didn't really get what Guy meant when he said youth, but he had a feeling it had nothing to do with his age. After all, if that was what he meant, Naruto was much more youthful than he was. He nodded anyway. He had wanted to be a shinobi ever since the Hokage had told him about them. He could be a hero and defend the village. Then everyone would have to like him. I'll do it, Databeo. What's your schedule? Fortunately for Naruto, either he nor Guy even heard his verbal tick over their shared excitement. It wasn't like Guy hadn't heard it before, but Naruto hated letting it slip like he did. It didn't even really mean anything when he said it most of the time, it just flew from his mouth like projectile word vomit. I get up at 4 a.m., start with early morning training, take a 5-minute break to stretch, do my early morning training, followed with a hearty breakfast. After that, is my mid-morning post-breakfast training. I take missions afterwards until lunch, then do my early afternoon, mid-afternoon, and late afternoon training. Dinner follows that, then early evening, mid-evening, and after dark training. I go to sleep at 10 p.m., then the schedule restarts the next day. Naruto could see not only Guy's teeth gleam, but he could see the odd eyebrows wiggle in excitement, while the man spoke of training. He made a note to remember the slowly growing evidence that Guy's eyebrows were alien caterpillars, before moaning internally at having already agreed to follow this crazy schedule. On the bright side, Guy was obviously a strong shinobi. The downside was the insane workload and low amount of sleep. He hoped it would be worth it. Hiruzen smiled as he watched the two of them through his crystal ball. He would show up in a month or so after Guy had gotten attached and say he had a place, then watch on in triumph as the eccentric Jonin asked to adopt Naruto. Naruto would get someone to care for him, Guy would get experience training before he picked a team, and he would get to know he made the poor boy's life a little easier. In the end, everyone would win. He would pat himself on the back if not for the AMBU watching. Actually, he might do so anyway, it's not like they would tell anyone. 3 weeks later, and Naruto was not regretting being placed with Guy one bit. Just the other day, some bullies had been hitting a girl and he had stomped them into the ground while Guy was doing his mission. Sure, they were older and students at the academy he wasn't able to go to yet, but he had sheer power and speed on his side. Plus, Guy had been giving pointers since Naruto was determined to try and copy the other man's movements. The girl had stuttered out a thank you before being dragged away from him by a guard. Now, they had managed to hit him a few times, but the amount of work he had put into his attempts to follow Guy had left him hitting trees at top speed several times. That hurt much more than some 7-year-old's fist did. He was currently at home with the hand seal guide he had been given, striving to gain the flexibility required to make seals quickly. Some of them, like the Tatsu seal, were difficult to form quickly enough to be useful in a fight. He didn't know any ninjutsu or genjutsu obviously, but that was no reason not to practice. Guy was watching with an approving smile, though there was tension hidden under the surface. He had been spending a lot of time with Naruto, and he knew that when it came time, he wouldn't want to give that up. He felt that Naruto needed someone like him there, someone to care for him and teach him. He had a feeling that the academy teachers wouldn't appreciate the youthful blonde bundle of energy, and instead would try to subtly sabotage him. He sighed as he walked away. Kakashi had actually requested that they train together again. My most hip and cool rival. You aren't late. Does this mean you have come to believe in youth? The silver-haired jounin suppressed a cringe, knowing that he would have to put up with some ranting and a challenge to get what he really wanted. He had walked into the Hokage's office to ask why he hadn't been assigned to watch Naruto since leaving ANBU a week ago, when he had seen Naruto and Guy training in the crystal ball. His first instinct had been to attempt a genjutsu release, and his second had been to beg the Hokage for the right to take over his sensei's son's care. Unfortunately, either had worked. HM? You say something, Guy? He chuckled to himself as his self-proclaimed eternal rival cried to the heavens about cool, hip, lazy, mask-wearing prodigies. I was just joking, but I did want to talk with you. I found out that you've been put in charge of Naruto for the time being, and I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to do me a favor when the Hokage comes to take him back. Kakashi's visible eyebrow rose when he saw Guy lose some of his spark at that comment, but he knew that he wouldn't stay down long. I will do my best to give you this favor, my eternal rival, though I truly can't look forward to that day. Naruto shows so much potential, dedication, and youth. Kakashi shook his head in self-pity, for he had stopped pitying Guy for his insanity long ago. Nowadays, he just pitied himself for having a man for a best friend. Hell, his village was filled with nutjobs, but he had to have been friends with the craziest one. Actually, Guy, I think that you'll like this idea. Hiruzen had requested Guy to bring Naruto to his office, looking forward to the surprise on Guy's face when he asked the jounin to legally adopt Naruto as his own son. He had been planning for this since the day he watched the two in his office a month ago, and he just loved it when a plan comes together. It's good to see the both of you, though I wish it was under better circumstances. An apartment has opened up that has just enough room for a single person to live in relative comfort. Asu. I'm sorry to interrupt, Hokage-sama. Once I say this piece, I will run 100 laps of Konoha on my hands to make up for this disrespect. Hiruzen was in relative shock. The only people that ever interrupted him were the worthless fossils that used to be his teammates. He nodded his permission for Guy to continue speaking. Yash. Thank you. After having spent so long with Naruto, I believe it would be good for both him and I for me to officially adopt him. Naruto's eyes shot wide open in shock, having thought that he couldn't be adopted after so long ignored in the orphanage. The Hokage was likewise rendered speechless, as he had believed he would have to tell Guy that it was allowed for him to adopt Naruto. He soon realized just who had tipped Guy off that only Kakashi and Jiraiya were forbidden from doing so, considering that only one of those two regularly spoke to Guy. Well played, Kakashi. I took away your chance to adopt Naruto, and you took away the moment of glee I would have for orchestrating this little performance. I'll make a Hokage out of you yet. Considering that I was just about to tell you that you could do that, I suppose all that remains is asking Naruto if he agrees with your choice. How about it? Would you like to live with Guy for the foreseeable future? Overcome with gratitude, shock, and another feeling he couldn't even begin to describe, the resident blonde instead nodded furiously. This led to him being swept up in a hug by Guy, and what was to be the first of many youthful scene changes. The Sandame groaned internally, knowing that he would never be able to unsee the rose-colored world those two could create. He only hoped that this would be enough to make up for what Naruto's life had so far been. Naruto was disillusioned with the academy. His bookwork was terrible in spite of hours of studying, his ninjutsu and genjutsu were making terrible progress, and he was the leader of the class in taijutsu. Surprised? So was Naruto. His adoptive father constantly told him that hard work would allow someone to overcome all barriers, and that he was youthful, so everything would work in the end. Naruto was ashamed that even his taijutsu and stealth grades were not enough to raise him above dead last. Kiba was only a few points higher, but he was arrogant and rubbed his status in Naruto's face constantly. At this point, Naruto preferred the company of the brooding loner Sasuke to Kiba any day. Not to say they hang out, just train near one another. In any event, Naruto decided he was right with his initial assessment of the academy, that it would be long, arduous, and a most unyouthful experience. Until his third year at least, as that year Irika shaped up and apologized for the way he had been treating Naruto, and Naruto successfully passed Kiba due to his bookwork grades rising dramatically. Naruto now spent what free time he had either training in his father's Goken with the weights he received as an 8th birthday present, or asking Irika for tips on the thrice-damned clone jutsu. It made no sense to Naruto that the single easiest and the first jutsu taught to the class was the only one he could not reproduce. His replacement jutsu and transformation jutsu were flawless, but his clone was unusable. The third year of the academy also saw Naruto officially make his first friend his age, someone the antithesis of youth, Naruto Shikamaru. It had started from that first attention they shared the first day, but didn't progress until the third year, when Shikamaru became curious enough about Naruto's treatment to question his father about it. This led to Shikamaru seeking answers from Naruto when his father alluded to some vague reference about troublesome people just can't see what's in front of their eyes, only what's behind their hearts. Naruto remembered the conversation he had with Shikamaru as if it had happened yesterday. You knew at least one of these was coming in a Naruto story, but I won't abuse them. Hey Naruto! Came an uncharacteristic shout from one Nara Shikamaru. Naruto ended his training of 2,000 kicks per foot before turning around and in replying, Yes, Shikamaru-san, what is it? Well, I've been wondering about the way that the teachers treat you, and the civilian-born students aren't any better. Do you know why? A sad smile appeared on Naruto's face before he nodded and told Shikamaru, For the longest time, I had no clue, but my dad told me a little while ago, and while I could use some vague reference about kunais and scrolls, I think I'll just tell you. On the 10th of October, the Kyuubi attacked our village and was sealed away into a newborn baby. I was the only child born that day, and thus became the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Shikamaru had thanked Naruto for trusting him with the truth, and offered to hang out with him in their free time. Naruto accepted immediately, and burst into his first experience with youthful tears when Shikamaru further asked if Naruto could help him with his taijutsu. Being friends with Shikamaru instantly made you friends with Choji, and an acquaintance with Ino. Naruto never cared too much for Ino and to a further extent Sakura's infatuation with Sasuke, and told her as much when he was reintroduced to her as a friend of Shikamaru's. That started a conversation about Naruto being jealous of Sasuke's good looks, and ended up with Ino retracting that statement after she appraised Naruto in depth for the first time. The black bodysuit of the third Hokage he wore showed defined muscle far above what an 8-year-old should have. The haori on his back, while unadorned, was a piece that made him look noble as it blew in the wind. His face was a bronze tan, and was angular in a handsome way, with the whisker marks softening the look. His eyes were a sapphire blue that held people's attention, and sparkled like the gems they resembled. The breastplate was a rusty red color with a swirl hammered into the spot above his heart, making him appear fierce, but the smile he always wore comforted those set on edge by the armor. Ino had actually stated that the eyes, hair, and face made Naruto look like a miniature fourth Hokage, which had caused Shikamaru to pale and Choji to choke on his chips, as the two had spoken of that before, and came to the conclusion that if Naruto did not know, then the Hokage must have a reason. Naruto's face crinkled into an obvious thinking pose for several seconds, before he hugged Ino, shouted his thanks and ran to talk with his father and the Hokage about what had just been discovered. Ino had blushed from the sudden contact with the boy she had just declared attractive, possibly nearly as much so as Sasuke, before returning to normal and leaving to follow her tall, dark, and handsome somewhere where the brooding was good. Shikamaru and Choji went to one of their usual relaxation spots. Naruto confronted his dad and Gigi about Ino's statement, and the truth was ignored until Naruto asked for a blood test to prove paternity, where Hiruzen cursed Guy for making Naruto smarter, and Guy began crying until Naruto assured him that even if the fourth had sired him, Guy was still his father. With the truth known, Naruto began training even harder. After all, he was going to be Hokage and surpass both of the men he looked to as fathers. Naruto requested that even if he were given scrolls of inheritance, his heritage itself remain hidden until he made Chunin, as he was nowhere near strong enough to protect himself from his doubtless future assassins. Despite his youth burning brighter than ever, he still could not make the basic clone jutsu work, and his dad stated that the only other clone he knew was a kinjutsu, and that he could not teach it to someone that was not already a shinobi. Iruka tried near the end of the year to help the most dedicated student in his class, but nothing they did seemed to help. Iruka discovered though that the amount of chakra Naruto put into one clone could create 60 clones, though all of them still turned out dead looking and soon disappeared. With all other avenue of help exhausted, Naruto went to the Hokage for help, and prepared his full argument for why he needed a replacement for the clone jutsu. Gigi, I need something that can take the place of the clone jutsu for my ninjutsu. Even after 3 years of training it, I have had no progress. The old man stared at the amalgam of miniature Hokages for a few minutes before replying, Alright Naruto, I will allow your father to teach you the shadow clone jutsu on the condition you not use it until the graduation exam. Do I have your word? Of course, Gigi, and should I fail to follow your condition, I will run 400 laps around the academy training ground on my hands. That's all. Wow, I could have done that way earlier. Naruto's youthful shout echoed in the small office, earning a groan from the Hokage. Without further ado, a grinning Naruto dashed off to tell Guy about the Hokage's deal, shouting about learning something new being youthful. Hiruzen, meanwhile, simply thought to himself, you are lucky I already know you have the chakra to do that technique, otherwise who knows what would have happened. In a less youthful Narutoverse, everyone still alive sneezed simultaneously. Back with Naruto, the hero was excitedly running back, Hami on his hands. He was also doing scissor kicks while balancing rocks not quite large enough to be boulders on his feet. Naruto's youthful exercises had ceased to catch the attention of the civilians for months, but even they were paying attention to him now. At least, in his head they were, as they were fervently congratulating him on becoming the 5th Hokage. His first decree, of course, was that his guilty pleasure, that being ramen, would have research done to make it still taste amazing but also be incredibly healthy. His daydreams came to an end as he saw the humble apartment he shared with his youthful father, and he quickly righted himself and dropped his rocks before wiping his feet and announcing himself. "Dad, I'm back. Gigi said you can teach me the shadow clone jutsu if I promise not to reveal it until I'm a genin." Guy's teeth flashed with an audible ping as he turned to Naruto, smiling at the news. "Yash. My son, your training in this most youthful jutsu will begin immediately, but if you don't learn it within 3 days, you must have it done and usable without hand seals in 1 month." Naruto knew that these challenges were supposed to be penalty tasks, but he loved training and getting stronger so much he typically did them even when he didn't need to, his walk home being an example of this. Naruto's training continued in a manner like this until his 5th year in the academy, when he and his father were called in by the Hokage to his office about halfway through. When the youthful duo arrived, they met a stern-faced Hokage, whose frown and slouch combined to say that he had bad news. "I have a busy day today, so allow me to get straight to the point. Guy, you can't be the Jounin sensei for Naruto's team. It would lead to unconscious favoritism, something the ideal of Konoha teamwork cannot allow. As such, you will take one of the genin teams that graduates this year. The choice of team will be up to you." Naruto and Guy both appeared to be nonplussed by this news, however, as it was something they had discussed before, and they agreed with the Hokage, although Guy believed he should still be able to teach his son as the major clans taught their children even after selection. "Hokage-sama, Naruto and I agree with you about the favoritism, but if you tell me that I cannot teach my own son in my spare time, that is most unyouthful." "Very well, Guy, there is a shinobi prospect this year I believe you might enjoy teaching, though he cannot mold chakra externally, or in high amounts, leaving him as a taijutsu only shinobi should you approve of teaching him. His name is Rock Lee." And thus a new person would be introduced into the youthful atmosphere, and he would admire Guy so much that, one day not far off, he would model himself on the youthful but unfortunately fashion-challenged shinobi. Rock Lee would also become Naruto's second friend his own age, and would prove himself an adept in the training method of youth. Naruto's training with his father changed focus after Lee was introduced to the Goken, as Naruto's mastery of the style was extreme. It was complete with the exception of the use of the 8 gates, which his father refused to teach him before he became a genin. With his only taijutsu practice being used to maintain his skill and increase his speed, strength, and reflexes, chakra control was his newest subject. Guy realized after learning of Naruto's problem with the clone jutsu that he wouldn't be able to use genjutsu without significant control exercises and that his ninjutsu would also suffer from overcharged techniques that may or may not explode in the user's face or lungs. So Naruto got on the fast track with tree walking, while simultaneously holding stones to his body and practicing his taijutsu to make the training both more efficient and difficult. Naruto was actually capable of using the only genjutsu shown to academy students by the sensei there by the end of his 5th year, the illusion art, misdirection jutsu. Naruto's final year in the academy was easier than all of his previous years by far, leaving him in 2nd place in the class standings when the Chunin exam was finally taken. Due to the Rookie of the Year actually being a cumulative score decided upon by the scores of all 6 years, and with Sasuke using his fire style, Great Fireball Jutsu to gain extra credit in ninjutsu, he failed to earn the award. It didn't matter to the unflappable hero though, his father had promised him all he could eat ramen at Ichiraku's Ramen as a graduation reward. When he got back from the C rank, he had taken his team on anyway. So while Naruto sat on his favorite swing, watching the others get congratulated by their parents, a certain slimy Chunin walked towards him, hoping to take advantage of the fact that Guy wasn't here to protect the object of his animosity. "Hey Naruto, I see your dad isn't here to pick you up today. How about you do something to make him extra proud when he comes back?" Mizuki said this in a kindly voice, one he had perfected after years of living in a village filled with those he considered simpering idiots. "What exactly do you think I should do, Mizuki-sensei? I really wish I could have been Rookie of the Year for him, but it's a cumulative reward." Naruto scrunched his face up and tilted his head while responding, thinking too deeply to notice Mizuki's wrath that the brat he was speaking to was ever adopted and taught enough to even pronounce the word cumulative, let alone know what it meant. "Well Naruto, there is the extra credit exam. Sasuke failed it, so if you pass you will automatically be Rookie of the Year. All you have to do is sneak into the Hokage's office, take the Forbidden Scroll to Training Ground 8, learn a technique and hand me the scroll." The maniacal grin was thankfully only in Mizuki's head, otherwise even someone like Naruto who was rather naive even after Guy's training would have caught on. Naruto has no sexy jutsu in this dimension, so how will things play out? Naruto snuck into the Hokage's office looking for the scroll Mizuki told him about, and found it completely undetected. Of course, he had just opened the window rather than gone through the whole building, and the scroll was propped against the Hokage's desk for some reason, so it wasn't exactly the chore Mizuki led him to believe, but hey, free scroll. The Hokage watched from underneath the ninja art, chameleon cloak jutsu that his favorite student created as Naruto took his scroll, and sent Anbu to follow immediately after the boy had left. He also had the distinct feeling he should feel thankful that he was not defeated by a humiliating technique, but shrugged that off. The Anbu kept at their task of following Naruto until he reached his destination, and even watched over him as he learned a new technique. Naruto quickly memorized the hand seals for his chosen jutsu, and even the entire description including fine print of what it did. After several hours of exhausting training, Naruto lay smiling and panting on the ground, the wielder of a brand new kinjutsu. It was then that Mizuki showed up, and 20 seconds later that he threw one of his impractically large shuriken. Shuriken means literally sword hidden in the hand. Mizuki's couldn't be hidden in the hands of a bijou. Naruto managed to duck, tired as he was, and even glared at someone for the first time since Irika apologized to him. "Sensei, why did you attack me? I passed the test." "Your actions are literally the opposite of youthful, beyond unyouthful in every way." Malicious if not truly threatening laughter broke from Mizuki's lips, before a snarl was released with a few surprising words for our hero. "Why? You want to know why? Well, I'll tell you. You are the Kyuubi." That's right, the foul demon that destroyed the majority of this cesspool was never killed, but instead sealed into the form of a pathetic babe that night, and that baby is you. Ah-ha-ha-hee-hee. The odd laughter continued a few more seconds, before a confused Naruto watched the pathetic joke of a first villain be knocked out by the Anbu that had been there. Naruto really didn't get what Mizuki was on about though. He had been told that the fox was sealed inside him by his birth father, and that he was a hero that the civilians misunderstood, but Mizuki was a ninja, so why would he think something like that? Naruto quickly shrugged his thoughts off, before waving to the Anbu and returning to his home, saddened that he wouldn't be able to give his father a framed Rookie of the Year award. 1 week later, on the day that teams were to be decided, Naruto was as usual the first person to sit down in the classroom. In spite of the relative dislike he had once held for the place, he had always attempted to arrive early for class, in an attempt to prove that he was deserving of being there. Sasuke came in next as normal, and sat next to his favorite buffer for fangirls as was his tradition. The two weren't friends exactly, but they respected the other's talent and drive for becoming shinobi. Naruto knew they wouldn't be immediately put on a team together, but they likely would work together in the future. The rest of the class filed in more or less at the same time, with the exception of Aino and Sakura, who arrived too late to sit next to their crush once again. They almost thought he was avoiding them, but there was no way that could be true. Well, not for Aino at least, as she took time to actually work on the physical skills of being a kunoichi, especially since Naruto said it might help her get Sasuke. Sakura, on the other hand, was about as useless as the average civilian girl that came out of the academy, which is to say, she couldn't fight. She could call up answers to book questions easily, but was essentially as tough as a down pillow. Just as she started her deliberate walk to move Naruto away from her seat though, Irika walked through the door and ruined yet another opportunity to sit with the Grand Emo. I dislike both Sakura and Sasuke, but at least one of them will be an acceptable character in this work. I am not going to seriously bash any main character. Mizuki wrote his own jokes though. Alright Genin, everyone sit down. That's an order. Irika brought out his own original technique for the last time that his first class would ever see it in their entirety. It nearly brought a tear to the scarred Chunin's eye to think about that. Everyone was seated by the time then had come out of his mouth, all of them still amazed their teacher could be so intimidating in spite of having not been one of the teachers to have fought in the war. Alright, I will now read the team numbers, names of genin in each team, and sensei for said genin teams. First, Team 1, nameless side characters, same for 2 through 6. Team 7, you are Inuzuka Kiba, Haruno Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke. Hatake Kakashi is your sensei. Irika ignored both Kiba's shouts of indignation and Sakura's screams of true love conquering all and proceeded to simply shout the next team over them. Team 8, you are Meito Naruto, Hyuga Hinata, and Aburaim Shino. Yuhi Kurinai is your sensei. Team 10, the other 3 named students, you get Sarutobi Asuma. Ino managed to not even look upset about her team, having matured more than Sakura with the help of her friends. As soon as Irika finished speaking, a tall man with short hair, a beard and rugged looks came in smoking a cigarette. He also had what appeared to be a red handprint on the side of his face, but seemed able to ignore it. Team 10, follow me. He turned and went right back out the door, not even waiting for his students to follow him. Next through the door came a woman whose appearance gave Naruto what he thought might be a heart attack. Stylishly wild and loose ebony hair framed a chiseled feminine face with full pouting lips and sinfully gorgeous crimson eyes. A slender neck descended from this visage to reveal a body that gave proof of rigorous physical training with its obvious muscle and complete lack of fat. The tight white dress covered in a motif of rose thorns clung to the body, wearing it so tightly it seemed in love with it. The very lightly tanned skin that was exposed drew the eyes and held them where they were, reducing the ability of anyone that could appreciate aesthetics to think of anything else. Large and perky, D-cup or larger? You decide. Breasts, a narrow waist, and perfectly curved hips finished what many might describe as the ideal female as she walked into the room, the ornamental red sleeve on her right arm flashing slightly as she moved. "Teammate, you're with me?" Even her voice was intoxicating enough to stun anyone unprepared to hear it. Yuhi Kurenai was patient and respectful enough to wait for her students to all stand up and follow her before she turned and left. Naruto recovered from his mini heart attack and followed his angelic-appearing sensei with a smile, certain that he would enjoy his life as a genin. Teammates sat inside a dango shop, waiting breathlessly as their sensei ordered some of the delicious treats. Hinata looked everywhere but at Naruto, blushing at being in the same booth as her crush. Shino sat still as a statue, already knowing that most restaurants disliked bugs being around. He kept his hidden under his skin. Naruto was unusually quiet and still, his eyes had yet to leave his new sensei, and thoughts about this being the best day since his adoption ran through his head. The three new genin more or less had an anticipatory silence going on at the moment, and their sensei sighed under her breath at their lack of interaction. Kurenai had become a jounin a short few months ago, and this was her first time since her 2-year stint as a teacher that she had students, and she didn't get exactly what she was hoping for. The perfect tracking team she requested was denied in favor of the tradition of the worst being paired with the best. Ever since Jiraiya of the Sannin had become a legend alongside his teammates, Konoha had attempted to replicate this previous success without any real results. Her current students included one Hyuga Hinata, who she had once escorted to and from school because her asshole father wouldn't do it himself. Next up was Abdurrahim Shino, who was as silent as the grave despite his status as a clan heir, though that isn't as surprising after one considers that the clan he was from don't believe in saying anything more than is necessary. The final was the one student on her team that she didn't request, one Meito Naruto. After hearing about his upbeat attitude and outrageous behavior, it surprised her to see the quiet and still student that was watching her rather intensely. She had no ill will towards the blonde, but hadn't prepared training for an obvious strike fighter like him. She just hoped that he would be willing to learn her genjutsu to tide him over for a while. As Kurenai was thinking about the blonde that had made his way onto the team, he was doing some deep thinking of his own. Now that he had spent the last 20 minutes staring at her, his higher brain function had returned enough for him to consider her abilities and his team. They featured a Hyuga for visual/chakra-based tracking and gentle fist techniques to disable opponents, an Abdurrahim for wide area scent tracking and chakra depletion disabling, and him, a heavy frontline strike fighter. Their sensei's skills were as of yet unknown, but Naruto felt it was safe to guess that a Hunter Nin team was the original goal, and that he was on this team simply because Kiba couldn't be. In other words, he was still unwanted and just used as an extra to round the team out. A sigh came from the lips of the Jinchuriki as he pondered why a team like this was set up with genin, as a true hunter team would be all Chunin or above. Deciding to wait for their sensei to introduce herself, our hero continued to simply sit quietly and wait. Kurenai saw that none of the genin were about to open up on their own, so she sat at the table with their food and got the ball rolling on her own. "Alright everyone, we are going to introduce ourselves. I'll go first. My name is Yuhi Kurenai, I am a genjutsu specialist. I dislike perverts, and people who think that because I am a woman I can't compete with the male shinobi crowd. I enjoy dango, tea, and spending time with my best friend Anko. My goal is to prove that kunoichi are equal to shinobi. Now why don't you go Hinata?" The shy girl eeped and looked down, her fingers pointing into each other, before speaking. "I honestly don't recall Hinata stuttering, so she won't in this story. My name is Hyuga Hinata, I specialize in the gentle fist of my family, and I also make medical salves. I don't really dislike much, but I like pressing flowers, looking for new herb combinations, and watching my idol train. My dream is to bring my family closer together." This was all said so quietly that the group had to strain to hear her, and none of them even caught the part about watching her idol. Naruto decided that he should continue the chain and speak up without being singled out for the introduction. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto, I am best in Goken Taijutsu, but I wish to learn and master all of the shinobi arts. I dislike unyouthful people, and like those who let their youth show. I also like training in my weekly ramen, databao." The look on his face after saying this was almost pained. He couldn't believe he had said that annoying tick in front of his teammates and sensei. He had tried so hard to suppress it. My dream is to one day master all shinobi arts, and become the strongest Hokage ever." The few people in the room that knew Guy were all very happy that his adopted son didn't worship youth to the same extent his father did, and that Naruto didn't shout everything he said. Shino, seeing as he was the only one left, then began his introduction. "Abdurrahim Shino, specialty in clan insect jutsu. I like bugs, and training in new clan techniques. I dislike people who kill innocent bugs. My goal is to be a good and respectable clan head one day." Naruto looked stunned. He didn't think he had ever heard Shino speak at all before this, and was amazed the boy even could say that much at once. Hinata was being her usual polite self and not looking at Shino in shock, while their sensei simply shook her head at the Aburame's lack of communication with his team. The lack of interaction between members almost had her hopes of passing the first genin team she was ever given shot, but she decided to be optimistic in that at least she didn't have to deal with anyone with a huge ego. Back at the academy, still waiting for their sensei, Kiba and Sasuke sneezed in unison, before glaring at each other for daring to do the same thing the other had. Kurenai dropped out of her musings ready to enlighten her team about what they had to do. Good, now that we all know each other, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is that none of you are actually genin yet. The shock, betrayal, and slight twitch from her 3 prospective students brought a slight smile to her face. Or it would if she was a sadist like Kakashi. Speaking of Kakashi, he had just gotten to the hallway that led to his team's class when he sneezed. Deciding it was an omen that he wasn't late enough yet, he leaned against the wall to catch a few winks. Instead of enjoying the moment, she decided to give her team the good news. The good news is that I will decide based on a test tomorrow at Training Ground 12. Why does everyone put a team with the training ground that matches its number? Does that mean if enough teams are filled for long enough that there is a team 44 that is stuck with the forest of death? Show up at 9 o'clock sharp, or don't show up at all. Equip yourselves well, and become one of Konoha's newest genin teams. With that said, Kurenai left the 3 of them on their own, discussing exactly what they thought the test tomorrow might be. When the group separated, despite having ignored each other when they formed, a slight sense of camaraderie was established. Naruto was ecstatic to have friends other than Shikamaru, Lee, and Choji. He had some pretty cool teammates, with Hinata being very kind and Shino being likable, if not very sociable. He also had a beautiful sensei that seemed to really want them to pass. Something in her tone told him that she was just as excited about this as they were. Naruto was heading straight home to speak to his father. He couldn't wait to tell him all about what his team was like. Of course, he had the idea that if he could walk on his fingertips the whole way home it would make it easier to form hand seals, so progress wasn't quite as fast as normal. Why miss an opportunity to train when you needed all the skill you could muster the next day? Of course, if he failed to use just his fingertips he would need to climb the Hokage monument with chakra while hauling a load of lumber, so he had more than enough to keep him busy until he got home. Upon reaching the door to his home, Naruto righted himself, proud that he had made it this time. "Hey Dad, I'm home." The voice of the excited young shinobi rang through the small building, and immediately a green blur appeared in the hall. "Yash! My youthful son, it is good to see you home. Tell me, what was the result of your team meeting today?" Meito Gai was easily more excited than Naruto was, proud beyond measure that his adopted son was finally moving forward towards his dream. "It was awesome, my sensei Kurenai seems nice, and my teammates are easy to get along with. I was shocked when she said we weren't really genin yet though. How come you never told me there was a second genin exam?" Guy gave a hearty laugh when Naruto asked him that question, before striking a nice guy pose and allowing his teeth to ping in the light given off by the flames of youth. The sun isn't out, and the lights in the apartment didn't generate enough light to reflect like that, let alone the moon and stars. Naruto decided that wasn't important and waited for the coming explanation. "You see my boy, that is a tradition, no one tells their children. It is the beginning of accepting a sensei's authority over their team, and everyone gives their own test to determine worthiness. Sometimes you may fail from one person when your showing would have passed you with someone else. This would be Kurenai's first time, so I couldn't help you with information about her test anyway." Nodding his head in understanding, Naruto bid goodnight to his father before trying to get some sleep. After all, Kurenai never said not to be early. At 7 o'clock Naruto was at the designated ground for the true genin exam, familiarizing himself with the immediate area. There was a cliff with a small waterfall flowing into a river that bisected the center of the ground. Trees rose on the 3 sides that remained, a common sight in the village. None of Naruto's teammates were there yet, and his sensei was nowhere to be seen. Naruto decided to pass the time with training. Who knows when those extra 500 kicks per leg would be useful. As time passed, Shino and Hinata both arrived, Hinata carrying 4 boxes wrapped in cloth with her. After a quick youthful morning, Naruto finished his exercise and went to sit with his team in the shade of the trees. Shino was surprisingly the first one to speak. "Naruto, I have some understanding of Hinata's abilities as they are clan-based, but all I know about you is that you are good at taijutsu and can use the illusion art, misdirection jutsu, but I don't know any of your other abilities." After getting over his surprise at Shino being the one to start a conversation, Naruto decided not to mention the new jutsu he learned from the scroll and just go with the basics. "Aside from that, I have mastered the Goken, with the exception of the 8 gates of the Hidden Lotus, and can use the transformation, substitution, and the shadow clone jutsu. I also have mastered the tree climbing exercise." Shocked silence was all that answered him, his team unable to fathom that a genin already knew a kinjutsu. They didn't have the time to respond, however, as Kurenai appeared exactly at 9. She had finished plans for her test long ago, and had decided to wait for 9 sharp to give her team time to interact. She was satisfied with the way they sat together as proof that they were interacting, and hopefully they were all ready to demonstrate for her. Good to see all of you here. Now before I explain the test, I want all of you to remember something. Konoha is the strongest hidden village because of its teamwork. Teams like the Sannin, the Inoshikacho, and even the original duo of the Senju brothers that founded the village gained fame for their power, but some of the most successful teams are nearly unknown. The combo of Mato Gai and Hataki Kakashi, or even further back Shimura Danzo and our current Hokage. They showed far better success as teams than they ever would alone. In this test, you will pass or fail as a team. Am I clear? Her 3 students nodded, Naruto having pulled a notepad from somewhere and apparently copied what she said word for word. That type of dedication warmed her heart, her opinion of the genin prospect rising. I've let my lecture have enough time to sink in, time to get on with their exam alright. In this test I am going to hide from you. The task that you 3 have is to find my location and disable me for return to the village. I will be acting as a newbie Chunin that has gone missing nin, and you are the squad charged with my capture. As a handicap in this test, Shino, you can't place a female bug on me beforehand, as it would be unlikely that you have one on the random ninja that has deserted. You have 1 hour, ready? After getting a look of determination and nod from her 3 students, Kurenai threw down a smoke bomb and used a shunshin to escape. When the smoke cleared, the 3 turned to each other to form a plan. Naruto was the first to speak this time, having an idea about the best way to utilize their resources. Guys, I think I've got a plan. I will make a group of 10 shadow clones to send out in all directions. Shino, do the same with your Kakechu. Hinata, the real me and Shino will stay at your side as you search for Kurenai-sensei with your Byakugan. Anything to add? 2 simultaneous headshakes was the response he received, leading him to grin and from a hand seal where he formed a cross with the index and middle fingers of his hands, left hand vertical and right horizontal. Yash! Shadow Clone Jutsu. The group of 10 clones formed pairs, before spreading out through the woods. Shino released a large amount of his Kakechu from his sleeves, sending them up the cliffside to cover the most possible ground. Hinata then formed a hand seal with fingers intertwined except for index, which pointed straight up. Byakugan. Naruto briefly gazed at her, this being the loudest sound he had ever heard from her. All of their abilities in use, Naruto turned his head toward Hinata and asked, "Can you see her, Hinata-chan? Your ability is quicker than mine or Shino's." The shy girl shook her head. "No, Naruto-kun, Sensei does know my current range with the Byakugan though, so she might still be close. I can only see within 80 meters. Unable to do anything until either Shino or Naruto had a reaction, the group waited tensely. Almost 20 minutes of their hour passed before Naruto turned his head to where one of his clones felt a genjutsu, shortly before it died, its partner trying to stall against their target. "Alright guys, if we run we can be there in 5 minutes if we head straight, I've got her." Dashing into the woods, the 3 arrived in time to see Naruto's clone disappear into a cloud of smoke. How can a genin make shadow clones? I may be a new jounin, but I can barely make 2. Kurenai managed not to voice her incredulous thoughts, but knew that she had been found. Oh my god, first fight in the story. Naruto, being the fastest of the group, closed in on Kurenai before the smoke cloud had even fully dissipated, shouting as he flew through the air towards his sensei. Dynamic entry. The flying kick was neatly dodged, experience in combat and special training to increase maneuverability coming in handy. The blonde turned and attempted a backhand, but Kurenai leaped back and was still unscathed. 3 quick hand seals were made by the more experienced fighter, Naruto not noticing anything change. Hinata, however, ran straight towards Naruto, and lashed a palm strike that deflected a kick he hadn't sensed from his right. The Kurenai that had yet to move from in front of him dissolved into cherry blossoms, and a quick jab caught a glancing blow to his shoulder. The pain from the blow, slight as it was, returned Naruto to the fight, free from the effects of the technique. Shino was the Kurenai's next target, her dodging past the 2 quick close-range fighters to hit the slower distance fighter. The Shino she struck burst apart into a dark purple swarm of Kakechu, which immediately latched onto Kurenai, dropping her chakra levels before she managed a quick substitution. The real Shino came out from the trees when a hail of shuriken nearly struck him, some of them even nicking his coat. Hinata was the next attacked, the grown woman using her superior reach, speed and strength to force the heiress on the defensive. 2 of Naruto's other shadow clones burst from the bushes behind Hinata, each with a mighty punch delivered straight to their master's sensei's stomach. Doubled over from the surprise blow, Kurenai had her tenketsu sealed right as the bell rang. All ninjas save Naruto were panting, his training with his father and natural stamina combining to make him sweaty, but still in control of his breath. His sensei panted more from the pain than exhaustion, as Gentle Fist was anything but, and Naruto's clones had hit with enough force to dispel themselves. When all present had caught their breath, and Hinata had unsealed their sensei's tenketsu, Kurenai smiled at her team. "Congratulations, you worked as a team and overcame a superior opponent, even if I was holding back. You three pass, and I couldn't be prouder to be your sensei. The kind smile and proud tone got bright smiles out of all her now official students. Even Shino managed to let his lips rise. Naruto was quickly overcome with youthful pride and joy, and hugged Kurenai while shouting, "Yash! Thank you, sensei. I couldn't be happier to be on your team, Databeo." Of course, this brought an end to the hug, both participants flustered, Kurenai from the unexpected contact with hard muscle, and Naruto from realization of what he'd done and embarrassment letting that thrice damned tick show itself again. Hinata smiled at the scene, while Shino remained stoic, his smile having faded. In spite of what many in the academy had believed, Hinata didn't like Naruto. She admired and nearly idolized him. She herself had once confused the two, before speaking with Kurenai about it. Kurenai explained that no one thinks the person they love is truly perfect, but that they recognize their flaws and love them in spite of them, or even because of them. She would always admire the blonde, but she knew that she didn't really love him. Hinata asked for everyone to return to the clearing with her, where she revealed the boxes were bento she had prepared for the team to eat lunch together, and to Naruto and Shino's surprise, the food was delicious. "Hey Hinata, how come you didn't mention you could cook so well when we all did introductions yesterday?" Naruto's question was affirmed by Shino, who stated, "I would like to know as well." "Why?" "Because this skill is obviously practiced and could prove in use on missions." Hinata blushed from the praise and attention, before simply answering, "Well, I like to cook but I don't get to very often, and it slipped my mind when we talked yesterday." Kurenai smiled at the interaction. Her team were certain to get along if this continued. Maybe they could even rival the Sannin one day. She chuckled to herself quietly, while an inexcusable perv, drunk and excessively vain gambler, and traitor/war criminal all felt as if they'd been slighted in some way. That night, after all the genin had returned home, a meeting that had been waiting 3 hours on Kakashi managed to finally get underway as he walked in the door. The third Hokage barely glanced at the chronically, time-challenged shinobi as he addressed those gathered. "Now that our resident early gray-haired ninja is here, and no, by the way, I don't want to know why you're late, we can get on with stating who passed and who failed." Kakashi looked disappointed that he wouldn't be able to use his awesome excuse. He lost track of time while thinking up new excuses, legitimately, but everyone else simply began stating their success/fail for their students. "Team 1 through 6, you can leave, I know you failed. Let's continue with Kakashi the generic ninja for the filler core all left," knowing the Hokage was too busy to hear them say their team failed again. "HMO right. Well, they passed, if only just. The Inuzuka hates both his teammates, the Uchiha hates both his teammates, and as she wishes she was good enough to be eye candy is obsessed with the Uchiha and hates the other one. I think they'll be fine." All those gathered stared at the laid-back ninja, before turning to Kurenai so she could report. "My team passed as well, and even finished the extra credit and disabled me." It was her turn to be stared at in shock, though more for the fact that her team finished their test than her being crazy. To actually disable her would be like one of Kakashi's team getting a bell from him. It shouldn't happen. While not exactly a match for Kakashi, she was a jounin and had served in combat before. Her being captured was entirely unexpected. Asuma decided to trample her pride as she had his the day before and laughed out. "If you can be captured by 3 genin that weren't even supposed to be able to find you without the Inuzuka, maybe you shouldn't be a jounin." The approaching argument was silenced by a glare from Asuma's father, the Hokage. Not wanting to stay any longer, Asuma simply stated pass before all present were dismissed. Kurenai went home looking forward to meeting her team the next day, and introducing them to training and smirked D-ranks. An evil chuckle filled her apartment that night, her rather rapid rise through the ranks making D-ranks a recent memory of hers. Now she got to be the one that sat down and watched while others chased that cat. Naruto awoke at 4 in the morning, practically shivering with excitement to go on his first official mission as a ninja. He also looked forward to seeing his youthful team and training under someone as talented as his sensei. His genjutsu was certain to skyrocket and approach his other skills with training under someone like her. His father had said that she made Chunin at 14 and Jounin at 21. Does this match with canon? Probably not, but it works for this story. The fact that she specialized in genjutsu meant that he would be able to learn and become closer in his goal of mastering all shinobi arts, and becoming the greatest ninja and Hokage ever. After a quick breakfast comprised of a single champion breakfast sandwich, French toast with hash browns, an egg fried over hard, a bacon lattice, and topped with medallion-cut strawberries and another slice of French toast, and a tall glass of OJ, he began his early morning solo training with 3 laps around the village. As he finished, he changed direction to training ground 12 without even stopping for a breath. Naruto closed in on his team's personal training ground 3 hours early, and was once again the first person there. After a standard warm-up, Naruto remembered that he was free of the promise he had made his Gigi. Naruto gained a spark in his eye that could only be caused by one of 3 things: learning a new technique or skill, free ramen at Ichiraku's, or increasingly effective training. One swift hand seal and a shout of shadow clone jutsu rang out in the clearing. Soon, an even 100 blondes had filled the area, before looking towards their creator in anticipation. Naruto grinned and even managed to ping like his dad with his teeth, before rallying his clones and giving their orders. Alright. Break into groups of 10. Group 1, practice our taijutsu. Group 2, practice our taijutsu while standing on the cliff face. Groups 3 and 4, you will play a nice war game in the woods, attempt to score critical damage with thrown shuriken and kunai. Groups 5 through 8, stand by and take position anytime one of your brethren falls. Groups 9 and 10, you will be facing me in combat. Ready? Begin! All of the groups ran off to do their assigned tasks, while Naruto stared down the 20 remaining copies. 2 of the copies dashed headlong at Naruto, while 3 more began peppering him with shuriken. Naruto ducked the roundhouse from the first clone, before hastily rolling away from the volley of incoming shuriken. As he stood up, he was forced into executing a back bend to dodge a hammer fist from the second clone. Naruto growled to himself as he launched into a leaf hurricane, taking out both of the close-range clones, only to be struck as 4 more charged him during the recovery. If I can't beat all 18 remaining clones untouched, I'll do all my missions for the next week with one hand tied behind my back. Determination flooding him, Naruto leapfrogged the clone currently trying to launch a backhand at him before kicking off the clone's back, diminishing his goal to 17. As he rose into the air, Naruto began to spin his body around, launching shuriken and kunai in every direction. 8 more clones fell before he regained a footing on solid ground, and all of them abandoned using ranged attacks in favor of straight hand-to-hand. The remaining clones launched into a quick series of combinations, several favoring quick jabs followed by heavy axe kicks, others trying to sweep his feet out from under him before launching potentially devastating elbows. Naruto dodged, weaved, ducked, hopped, and deflected in such a way that not one attack landed correctly. Utilizing another tactic of his father's, Naruto disappeared and reappeared in one instant behind the farthest back of all his clones. Using the opening the dancing leaf shadow presented, he grabbed the surprised clone and levered his body to throw it into 3 others, leaving only 4 opponents. The clones slowly circled their creator, wary of being the next to fall. The true Naruto elected to go on the offensive this time, flipping forwards to bring his heel crashing down on the spot his clone had just vacated. Immediately countering, assuming that the original had not time to maneuver, the clone unleashed a powerful uppercut into his target's chin. Instead, the disturbing crunch the clone expected from the bone-jarring impact, he got only a familiar pop and a cloud of smoke. Turning to where the rest of his siblings were, he watched a low sweep take out his remaining allies. A quick substitution had ruined the cautious approach the chakra constructs took, leaving a duel between creator and clone. Knowing that this would likely be his last attack, the clone slid across the ground hoping for a leg grab to lead into a submission hold. A stomp on his kneecap and he too was removed from his existence, as had his brothers before him. The sound of applause led the sweaty and heavily breathing Naruto to look toward the river in the ground. Gathered at its edge were his 2 friends and teammates, as well as his sensei. Blushing from the attention, he fell back on the old habit of bringing a hand behind his head and smiling, not sure how to respond. That was impressive, Naruto. No genin should be able to move like that or train that intensely. Just the chakra use alone from the jutsu would have killed everyone else in this clearing combined. Kurenai's tone managed to stay the professional sound one would expect from their sensei, while inside she was only just keeping the utter shock from showing. I don't believe this, he is a genin and he is nearly as fast as I am. What the hell did Guy do to make him like this? Kurenai's smile became less of a strain as she remembered seeing the eccentric, youth-obsessed Jounin climbing the Hokage monument with his chin once. If the man could do that without possessing some demonic being that granted regeneration, then Naruto surely had a higher ceiling and faster rate of acclimation. The other 2 were unable to hold in their shock, Hinata sat stunned with her mouth open and Shino may, or may not have been breathing. With him it can be hard to tell, but currently Naruto was leaning in the direction of not. Naruto dispelled his remaining clones, almost flinching from the rapid influx of memories, before joining his team at the riverbank. Kurenai managed to grab her team's attention when she walked out onto the river's surface, and stood watching their surprise. By now your families have introduced you to tree walking or surface clinging as some call it. This is the next step in that exercise. Whereas in the first you channel a steady amount of chakra to stick to a flat, solid surface, in this exercise the surface tension of water fluctuates, and you must make your chakra fluctuate in parallel with it. I want all of you to try this on your own. If within 1 hour you fail to progress, speak to me and we will find out what you're doing wrong. The 3 nodded their heads, before attempting the feat themselves. Hinata actually managed to stand on the water for nearly 20 seconds before she sank knee-deep in the river. Neither Naruto nor Shino had that immediate level of success. Half an hour passed before the 3 took a minute to think about ways to hurry it along. Hinata activated her Byakugan before attempting the exercise again, and this time with her enhanced chakra vision, was able to match both the change in surface tension and the variation made by the river's current. Naruto and Shino both congratulated the shy girl in being the first to succeed before turning back to the water, Naruto with youthful determined flames and Shino with he wanted to do well too. Kurenai came up and congratulated Hinata, before telling her that she must also be able to fight on the water without sinking before she had mastered the exercise. Naruto once more created a party of clones before once more attempting the exercise. Shino stayed still and quiet, watching the surface of the water move in a regular pattern, attempting to logically discover the flow he needed to synchronize with. 3 more hours passed, and all of Team 8 had moved on to practice fighting and dodging on the water's surface. Seeing as it was noon, Kurenai halted the training in favor of lunch. They returned to the dango and tea stand they ate at when they first met. Alright, now we will train until this time every day, before going to get a mission or 2 from the Hokage. After we finish I will set aside 2 hours for individual help if any of you need it, before I return to my apartment. I will show all of you where it is after we finish today's mission. Unless there are any questions, let's get to work. Hiruzen looked at the team as they entered the mission office, mentally smirking as he knew what was about to come. He loved D ranks, they were a sign of peace and prosperity for the village, as when he had been trained by Tobirama, D ranks didn't exist. It was either you were a ninja and risking your life on the battlefield or patrolling, or you were a civilian and did your own work. Teammate requesting a mission, Hokage-sama. Kurenai's voice was mildly strained, as she wasn't used to speaking to the Hokage still. It made her nervous that she might say the wrong thing and lose her recent promotion to Jounin. The elderly man just smiled, however, and looked through the pile of requests on the desk. Well, teammate, congratulations on being the first team in for a mission from the new group. We have such fine missions as painting a fence, delivering flour to the bakery from the warehouse, tilling a farmer's field, and lastly, finding the lost cat of our daimyo's wife. The interior smirk grew to a grin with the look on the faces of the 2 non-Aburaim genin in the room. Hinata had tilted her head to the side in confusion that these could be missions, with the exception of the cat one as the daimyo's wife was far too busy to find her own cat. Naruto, on the other hand, looked as if his Gigi had pulled a trout out from under his hat and smacked him in the face with it. Maybe I should take a picture now, I'll have more faces to look at next year. A shiver went down the Hokage's spine as he thought that, as if to say you never know, you are pretty old. We'll take the mission to find Tora, Hokage-sama. Kurenai chose and was handed the scroll by the esteemed leader before turning and walking out of the room. She actually had to drag Naruto out though, as it turned out that he had fainted from shock and was standing on his feet in spite of this. Alright team, our target is a brown cat with a pink ribbon on its ear. It's named Tora, and there is no info on where it might be. We will head into the woods that lie inside the walls, as if the cat is out of the village proper. The mission is a C rank. Following the orders of their commander/sensei, Team 8 ventured straight to their regular training ground, figuring it might help to begin the search in familiar territory. Naruto made 30 clones before giving them the same directions he had given to the clones that had looked for Kurenai during the team test. Shino released a small swarm of bugs, and Hinata activated her Byakugan. However, even with the combined tracking skills of this group, it took nearly 2 hours to find Tora, and that cat was not happy to be found. Until Hinata started scratching its ears, anyway. Kurenai was floored by the sight of the demon cat acting so tame and cute. Such a thing made no sense. Hell, the damned beast had nearly given her a scar. It had gone just as expected at first. The cat had hissed and leaped at Naruto's face and scratched at his eyes. Shino had to dodge or suffer a similar fate, but Hinata caught the cat and it started purring. One grumbling genin, one smiling, and one stoic arrived at the Hokage tower followed by their sensei. All present in the room watched slack-jawed as Hinata practically cuddled the vicious beast in her hands, save Madame Shinji, the wife of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. She was absolutely ecstatic to get her cat back for the 3rd time this week. Tora's escape attempts had decreased recently. "Oh Tora, come to mommy!" The shout made the pacified feline nearly wince, and even struggled to escape once again before it was taken from the comfortable arms that held it, and returned to the terrifying meat prison that was one of Madame Shinji's hugs. Ha, cat deserves it for resisting us like it did, I could have lost an eye. Naruto thought this in one of his rare moments of immaturity, while Hinata looked nearly heartbroken when she remembered that they had to return the cat. Shino remained impossible to write down facial reactions for, and Kurenai's sweat dropped at the loss on her female student's face and sinister grin on her blondes. The Hokage, however, found the looks rather entertaining, suppressing a grin as he watched these young genin not even try to hide their emotions. With the exception of the Aburaim, but that was a given. Well, that's all we can do today. We'll be back same time tomorrow for more missions, Hokage-sama. The team left, following Kurenai to her apartment as she had promised, and said their goodbyes to one another after arriving. Naruto was the only genin to remain behind. What it is, Naruto, do you need my help with something? Kurenai smiled, happy that one of her students was already taking up her offer of individual help. Yeah, Kurenai-sensei. You see, I want to master all the arts of shinobi, including genjutsu. I was wondering if you would help me with maybe learning some new techniques or how to better recognize and break genjutsu. If you don't have time today or don't want to, I understand though. The woman suppressed a giggle as her most active and outgoing student was acting almost like he was shy right then. The contrast made it kind of cute. Cute? I mean funny, right? I have a couple hours free, so what would like to learn most? Naruto's shy words stumbling and rambling changed to a large smile, glad that his new sensei was so kind. His face scrunched up into a thinking pose soon after as he considered her question though, reinforcing the recent notion that had passed through Kurenai's head about her new student. Man, I'd better not tell Enko about this, she'll start accusing me of being a pedo like that bastard that ruined her life. I think that learning how to recognize and break genjutsu would be best to learn first. Who knows when an enemy might try to use one. Kurenai nodded, satisfied that the kind of hyper-blonde chose the part he would have the most trouble with first. Very well, Naruto, we can do this training right here in my home. No reason to waste precious training time walking back out to the forest, right? Another grin and a nod was the answer she received, so she turned and opened the door to her apartment. Naruto's nervousness returned after a few seconds, realizing a few things that he had not recognized before. First, he was alone with Kurenai-sensei for the first time. Next, he was going inside her house, which his father had once told him that he should never be alone with a woman in her home until he was at least 15, but this was for training, so he didn't think he'd be in trouble. Last and most important, he was alone with Kurenai in her house. Seriously, he had started developing a crush on her, and this one fact would ruin the concentration he needed for his training. A feminine throat being cleared alerted Naruto to the fact that time was still moving outside his head. Blushing and scratching behind his head much as he had that morning, Naruto quickly followed a now openly giggling Kurenai into her home. He only hoped she wouldn't ask him just what he had been thinking about after they got in. When they reached the living room, Kurenai motioned for Naruto to sit in a living chair across a glass coffee table from her own recliner. There were few pictures in the apartment, save one of Kurenai and another beauty with purple hair hugging. A few paintings lined the soft cream-colored walls, most of them being nature scenes save one of a large snake wrapping around a blooming cherry tree. Noticing Naruto's eyes staying on the photograph on the table, Kurenai smiled. She's my roommate and best friend. She's on a mission right now though, so if you want to meet her it could take a while. Looking down and blushing, having been caught staring at the picture, Naruto was ashamed that she had known he was trying to determine the relationship between his sensei and this other woman. Fearing that the woman he was crushing on was one of many kunoichi that preferred the company of other women. Of course, in defense of kunoichi, most of them are hot enough to make completely and avidly straight women bi-curious, so it wasn't really that surprising. In any event, Naruto managed to get over his embarrassment and look back up at his sensei. A quick smile from her, and the training commenced. Naruto, you are familiar with the techniques to break genjutsu, right? The raven-haired woman asked, curious, hoping that this much he already knew. Yes, Kurenai-sensei, halting chakra flow before bursting as much as possible, causing yourself pain, or having a teammate channel their own chakra through you. I have more trouble telling whether or not a genjutsu has been activated than breaking free. Kurenai nodded thoughtfully, before deciding on a way to train him. Well, Naruto, since you seem to be a hands-on type of learner, I believe that the fastest way to get you to recognize genjutsu will be for me to repeatedly layer genjutsu on you. I will start with some of the more obvious techniques before changing to increase subtlety every time you can recognize a technique within 5 seconds. This training may take you a while though, so you will probably need to meet me after missions for at least a few weeks. Naruto, while nervous about spending so much time alone with his sensei, nodded and thanked her for taking the time to help him. Thanks, Kurenai-sensei, it means a lot that you would use so much of your free time to help me. Kurenai smiled lightly before replying, I'm your sensei Naruto. Being able to help one of my students makes me happy, and you building your courage enough to ask me for help makes me proud. That had been the end of conversation and the start of training that would last for a whole month before Kurenai decided that Naruto was ready to move on to actually learning techniques in genjutsu. The team training had moved from chakra control to team building and sparring, as Hinata and Shino both learned family techniques. The missions got more and more boring and mind-numbingly easy during the whole month. Even the catch Totem mission only took about 20 minutes, since Shino left a bug on the cat, and it would run straight to Hinata anytime it saw her. As their teamwork increased and their skills grew, Kurenai believed them ready to finally take on a C-rank mission. On the 1-month anniversary of their official team formation, they went to the Hokage to request a mission that would be both Hinata and Naruto's first time outside the village. Hokage-sama, teammate has come to request a C-rank. Hiruzen looked at the faces of the team, all of which had signs of experience and determination. Even the shy Hyuga and the stoic Aburame had their faces set in such a way as to show their resolve to obtain and complete this mission. Very well, there are currently 3 C ranks available. A delivery to Tanzaku Gai, an escort and protection detail for the Land of Waves, and a supply delivery to a border outpost on the border of Taki. While Kurenai believed her team ready for combat, she didn't want to risk going too close or beyond the borders of their country. As missing name became more common the further one went from a friendly village. We'll take the town delivery, Hokage-sama. If I may ask though, what is being carried? The delivery is a statement of financial record from the bank, to be delivered to the mayor of town. It is to be delivered unopened. Little to no expected combat. Taking a quick look to make sure her team heard everything that the Hokage said, she took the scroll from the Hokage. Team, you have an hour to pack for a week-long mission and meet me at the gate. I'll see you there. With a quick nod, the three genin separated and ran for their own homes. Naruto was lucky as his father had told him to always have a bag packed and ready for long missions, as sometimes you didn't get much notice before being forced to leave. As he walked through the door to his room and grabbed his bag, Guy appeared. My most youthful son, where are you going? I was hoping you could train with your old man tonight. Tears seemed ready to fall from Guy's face. In the past month the two rarely saw or spoke to one another, with Guy going on many missions and Naruto spending his spare time training with his sensei. Sorry Dad, I'm going on my first C rank with my team today. We have to go to Tenzake and see the mayor. This report brought an entirely different type of tears from Guy, tears of a more youthful variety. Yash! My son and his youthful team are on their first C rank mission. We must celebrate with a feast of youthful ramen at Ichiraku's when you return to celebrate. I should give you a gift too, something to spur you even grander displays of your youth. While Guy continued to rant, even his son could take only so much about the flames of youth before tuning out. With that in mind, he just waved goodbye and left for the gate, not wanting to be late for his first real mission. When he approached the gate, Naruto saw that only Kurenai had arrived, so he walked over and stood by her side, waiting patiently for the rest of his team. He remained still and silent until Kurenai brought him out of his reverie. So Naruto-kun, are you excited about the mission? Over the last month Naruto had spent more time with Kurenai than anyone else, and she had become the person he was closest to and trusted most next to his father. This was reflected by Kurenai in the way she spoke to him, and by himself in the way that he would speak to her about his deeper thoughts about the village that only his father had heard before. I am very excited, but I'm also nervous. I've never seen what the world is like outside the village. What if the people outside treat me the same way people have always treated me here? Naruto's deep fear that the majority of people all would view him as a being that shouldn't exist was usually hidden behind the face of a determined youth showed briefly. Kurenai already knew about this, as one of the first genjutsu she used was the illusion art, Nightmare View Jutsu. Inside this technique he watched as all those he cared for turned their backs on him, treating him as the populace had long done, rejecting him completely. He had broken down into tears in her living room, the first time tears of fear and pain left him since the night of his adoption. When the technique was broken he explained what had happened and fought through the pain. After the rather awkward pause that happened as Naruto remembered that night, he turned to speak. Hey Kurenai-sensei, hey sensei, Naruto, it's time to leave. Hinata's shout had abruptly ended the sentence Naruto had been about to say, and with no further ado they left. In spite of it being their first C rank, nothing memorable had happened. 3 days there, 1 day in town, and 3 days back without any violence. As the rather disappointed team returned their scroll to get their pay, however, a pug wearing a leaf headband and dark blue coat ran into the room. Kakashi and his team need backup fast, he is wounded and they expect further enemy contact. The Hokage nearly fell out of his chair at the idea of Kakashi even being touched by anything but a female client during a C rank. Pakken, what exactly happened, teammate? I know you just got back but Kurenai is the only available jounin, and you are a talented genin team. Please listen to Pakken and then follow him to Kakashi. The panting dog took a few breaths to prepare himself to speak again, while teammates stood wide-eyed as the dog spoke. Kakashi's mission was a fraud. The client lied to save money as he could afford nothing more than a C rank. About 2 hours out, the demon brothers were defeated, and the ruse exposed. Kakashi decided to continue the mission, as he believed that he could handle any threats brought out by Gato, who wishes to stop construction of the bridge. Zabuza, the demon of the mist, attacked the team however. Kakashi managed to defeat him after being captured in a water prison by channeling lightning chakra through his body and electrocuting both himself and his target. Zabuza was retrieved by a fake hunter Nin that was actually on his side, and Kakashi is currently laid up in bed at the client's home recovering. The small dog was panting again after saying so much, but he looked ready to run back to his master immediately. You heard Pakken, team, let's go back up Team 7. With that statement, Kurenai motioned Pakken to lead them to Kakashi, and Team 8 began a mad dash for the Land of Waves. It took just 1 day for Team 8 to arrive at the client's house. There they met Tazuna, his daughter Tsunami, and his grandson Inari. The only member of Team 7 to have even been scratched was Kakashi, who was laid up and suffering from electrical burns on his torso. Team 7, I am Yohi Kurinai, my students you are familiar with. We are here to assist your team in preparing for Zabuza's return, as well as the battle that will take place when he does. Now, Hinata, do you have a salve for burns on you? Hinata nodded before rummaging through her pack, producing a jar filled with an orange paste. She had Kakashi's bandages taken off and began to gently layer the substance evenly over his injuries, shuddering at the extent of them. Alright, now what has Kakashi taught all of you? I need to know how we can help prepare you for the next battle. Kiba and Sakura replied with twin calls of teamwork before Sasuke elected to give his own answer. A Katon Jutsu, a Doton Jutsu, and the fact that Kiba and the puppy aren't completely worthless. Team 8 looked shocked that Kakashi had so heavily favored Sasuke's teaching even though Sakura obviously needed the most help. They all just hoped it had been a situation like Naruto's with Kurinai, that Sasuke was the only one to ask for help. They didn't even know the surface clinging exercise? Well, Uchiha-san, guess that means your whole team will benefit greatly from training to master an individual exercise together, as having just 1 week until Kakashi recovers, which means we can assume the same for Zabuza. Sasuke merely grunted again, not exactly excited to work with others. Kakashi at least had a Sharingan, meaning his teaching was worthwhile. In the end, Shino and Hinata elected to stay with the Tazuna and guard him, while Kurinai, Naruto, and Team 7 filed out of the home to the woods. All of you will be learning a chakra control exercise, this being surface clinging or tree walking, it is the same thing. You will channel chakra to your feet, and use it to stick to the trees. This opens up a new facet for combat, and allows better control once mastered. Naruto will demonstrate. Taking his cue, Naruto walked up the tree and onto the bottom of one of its middle branches. He waved at Team 7 from his new perch, smiling at the looks on their faces. This will build your chakra reserves, and allow you to better harness them. One use of a jutsu becomes 2 or 3, in some cases. Before you begin, I recommend placing 1 foot on the tree and seeking a comfortable point in your chakra. If your foot begins to slip as you move up, you need to channel more. Likewise, if your foot begins to push you away from the tree, you need to use less. As Kurinai ended her lecture, Naruto handed the 3 of them kunai to mark their progress up the tree. A whopping 5 minutes later, Sakura had completed the exercise. Kurinai-sensei, look, I already made it to the top and back down. A proud smile graced her face, the first time she had likely been proud of anything she'd done since being passed and allowed on the team. Of course the smile wilted off her face as she saw the look that Sasuke gave her, obviously upset that he wasn't the first to make it up the tree. That's good, Sakura. Now, you can either keep running up and down the tree 50 times, or I can teach you a genjutsu. Which would you rather do? The very suggestion of running up and down a tree 50 times caused Sakura to pale, and immediately I'll take the genjutsu, sensei. Kurinai nodded, but on the inside sighed, no wonder Kakashi has been focusing on teamwork. She didn't even consider that any genjutsu I can teach I already know and that I may have taught my own students. I really need to talk with Kakashi when he wakes up. Kurinai motioned for Sakura to follow her as Naruto continued to observe the training that Kiba and Sasuke continued. They both seem determined, but maybe I can raise the stakes a little. Hey guys, last one up the tree faces me in a taijutsu spar. Naruto smirked a little at their reaction, even Sasuke wasn't arrogant enough to ever want to face him in pure taijutsu. With the flames of youth burning in their eyes, Naruto shedding macho tears when he noticed this, Kiba and Sasuke redoubled their efforts to make it up the tree. Hours later, just as the sun began to set, the 2 exhausted young shinobi both made it to the top of the tree at a dead tie. Naruto almost starting pouting as he noticed that, before a wondrous idea struck him. Well, my friends, since it was a tie, tomorrow the both of you will face me 2-on-1 in that spar. After all, either of you won, but it wouldn't be fair if only one of you had to fight, and both at once is more convenient than one at a time. Naruto's bright smile was nearly enough to suppress the looks of sheer terror on the faces of the male genin from Team 7. As Naruto, Kurinai, and Team 7 returned to the house, they were shocked to see an awakened Kakashi sitting at the dining table, a book with an orange cover resting in his hands. The famous ninja turned his head as the group filed in, before giving a strained yo with an obviously pained eye smile. Of course, when he opened his eye and noticed Kurinai glaring at his book, the small amount of already pale skin around his eye paled further, and his book seemingly disappeared from one moment to the next. Kakashi-san, in respect to your current state, I will not do anything about your habits, nor will I say anything about the lackluster training your genin have received. Kurinai's statement brought a relieved sigh from the injured sensei, until she continued. Rest assured, however, that I will be making note of all of this in my report to the Hokage when this mission is complete. Your decision to focus on teamwork training is admirable, but a team of ninja with no more skill than civilians is a team that dies quickly. Kakashi hung his head, the speech having struck one of his nerves rather deeply. He knew that they should have learned more before they went through something like this, but he thought the dangers of a C rank, a real one, anyway, would be enough to show his team the need to get along. After they realized that they would need help, he would teach them real skills, but this mission was a disaster. All it had proven was that he had let his skills slip since he left ANBU, and that he needed training just as much as his genin did. The rest of the group gathered as Shino and Hinata came in escorting Tazuna. Sakura, however, was unable to take the overall silence of the dining room and focused on a minor detail across the room. Tazuna-san, what is that picture over there? The corner looks like it was torn. The old man gave a nostalgic smile, before in a proud voice he responded. That is a picture of my family. The ripped corner was my son-in-law Kaiza. He was the hero of Wave. Inari abruptly stood and left, stomping audibly up the stairs to his room. Father, you know better than to talk about Kaiza in front of Inari. Tsunami followed this statement by rushing upstairs to check on her son. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble. Sakura's expression clearly spoke of her regret and embarrassment. Tazuna just sighed, disappointed that even with Hope returning and Ninja here to help, Inari had yet to show improvement. It isn't your fault. Inari was very close to Kaiza and admired him greatly. Kaiza saved Inari's life from drowning in an accident where some bullies that didn't know he couldn't swim at the time threw him in the water. After that, Kaiza became close to everyone here, practically a second father for Inari. About a year later, he dove into dangerous floodwaters with some bracing for our damaged gates, and saved the whole village from flooding. He was named our hero afterwards, and enjoyed the love and respect of our whole village. But things weren't to last. Kaiza resisted that arrogant, fat, bastard Gato's takeover of our village. The Jounin and Genin, with the exception of Sakura, could already tell where this story was heading, and Naruto in particular grew a look of anger. Kaiza always used to say, if you care about something, if it's precious to you, wrap both your arms around and protect it, no matter what. Gato broke the village by having him executed publicly. In front of the whole town, including Inari, Kaiza had both of his arms cut off and was left to bleed out slowly. Since then, Inari gave up hope, which is why he is so aloof and treats you the way he does. Sakura was horrified at the end of the story, small tears leaving her eyes. The rest of the ninja were more angry than shocked, save Hinata, who looked as though she was barely holding her own tears back, and Naruto, who looked outraged. Inari shouldn't sulk like this. He should feel honored to have known such an admirable man. That philosophy is something that many people could afford to adhere to. Everyone's gaze turned to the most unexpected voice that remarked, even Naruto's. Sasuke's face still had its usual scowl, but his eyes looked different. There was almost a gleam in them. You're right, Sasuke. Better to honor the dead with your actions than cry tears to wash away their grave. It was by no means rare for Naruto and Sasuke to agree on things, being as the only person in the academy that Sasuke bore respect for as a student was Naruto. Due to his rapid rise when he was graded fairly, and his talent in every branch, Naruto earned Sasuke's respect, if not friendship, by the 4th year in the academy. Many of Sasuke's fangirls also hated Naruto, as they thought he was trying to make their Sasuke-kun look bad, so sitting close to him in class got them to sit slightly further away from him. The next day dawned with the entirety of Team 7 ready to learn to water walk. Shino volunteered to supervise their training, while Kurenai and Hinata went out to guard Tazuna. Naruto elected to stay behind for some private training, as well as guarding Tazuna's family with Kage Bunshin. Before he left, however, he was stopped momentarily by Kakashi. Yo Naruto, wait just a minute before you leave, I want to talk to you about something. Naruto looked confusedly at the silver-haired man. Sure, this was his dad's eternal rival, but he had never spoken to him before. Yes, what did you want, Kakashi-sensei? While he hadn't actually learned anything from the man, he was officially a sensei for a genin team, so might as well show him proper respect. I have a scroll with a couple jutsu on them. Guy told me I would have to teach you a couple ninjutsu if I lost 3 challenges in a row with him, so here. Naruto gazed at the scroll skeptically. Dad didn't say anything about this arrangement. Youthful desires of self-improvement defeated suspicion in the end, however, as Naruto accepted the scrolls along with a small slip of paper. Kakashi-sensei? Why is this paper mixed with the scrolls? Kakashi was mildly surprised that Guy hadn't introduced this concept to Naruto yet, but quickly recovered to his normal self. It's chakra paper, Naruto. It tells a shinobi what their elemental affinity is or what their affinities are. The affinities in order from top around clockwise are Katan, Futan, Right-un, Doton, and Suiton. These elements follow a pattern of defeating the element that follows them in a clockwise pattern. No matter what a person's affinity is, they can learn any jutsu, but it is easiest for a ninja to learn jutsu that align with their own element. This paper will burn if you have Katan, slice in 2 if you have Futan, crumple into a ball if you possess Right-un, harden and crumble if Doton, and soak if you have Suiton. Naruto brightened, and immediately asked some questions to clarify. So what does it do if someone has an elemental Kekkei Genkai? Does it display that somehow? And what if someone has more than one affinity? Or is that even possible? Kakashi shook his head at the kid's excitable nature, almost laughing if it weren't for the fact that he knew that would cause unbearable pain in his burns. To answer, If an elemental Kekkei Genkai is present, the paper does nothing unless it has already awoken. If it has awoken, then the paper shows only the result of the new element, and neither of its components. Naruto looked confused at that answer, but motioned for Kakashi to continue explaining, too interested in the rest to interrupt. Now, while it is possible for someone to be born with multiple elements, it is rare. The paper will show signs of both, but conflicting elements are uncommon to be inherited even more than just having multiple. Just channel some chakra through it, and I'll tell you what the opening exercise of elemental mastery is for your element. I can give you some advice for any element but Futon, it's the only one I haven't mastered. Naruto nodded before channeling a little chakra through the paper in his hand. It soaked his hand, before being sliced in two. Futon and Suiton, you're lucky Naruto. Futon is heavily offensive, while Suiton is arguably the most versatile of all, with many offensive and defensive techniques. For Futon, the exercise is to cut a leaf in half with nothing but your chakra. Suiton, on the other hand, you must be able to raise water under your hands until it reaches your shoulders. If you decide to do the mastery exercise now, I recommend Suiton, since I can give you a tip for it. Just imagine your chakra becoming cool and liquefying. Well, see you when you get back in. Naruto quickly decided that learning a technique would be faster than mastering either element, and as such looked at his scrolls. While there was one scroll for every element, he decided to focus and learn only the ones he was attuned to for now. So, after making guard clones and training clones, he opened the scrolls for Suiton and Futon. Of the two techniques, one was the C-rank Futon, De Tapa, and the other was a B-rank, Suiton, Sujin Hiki. Naruto elected to learn both simultaneously, with 30 clones working on each. Of course, Naruto's chakra control and natural learning rate were both above average. Compounding his progress with the clones was enough to let him master both in just a day. About 20 minutes before dinner, in fact. Kurenai, Shino, and Naruto exchanged information on what had happened between them. Sakura had finished water walking as an exercise and learned enough from continued practice to utilize the technique Kurenai taught her, while Sasuke and Kiba were both heavily worn out from the successive days of harsh training. And their spar with Naruto was the next day. The table was peaceful once again at the beginning of this meal, but it would be shattered once again. This time it was Inari that ruined a perfectly adequate meal. Why are you trying so hard? Gato will kill you, none of you can match his power. Kiba was the one to respond first this time, a bestial growl escaping him. Listen you little brat, not only is Gato pathetically weak compared to any ninja, but there are two Jounin here. The only threat we face is Zabuza and his accomplice. Shut up. You don't know what it's like to have a hard life, you've all been spoiled living in your big, cushy ninja villages. There is no way to beat him, or for you to understand me. Inari's newest statement was enough to stir Naruto into discussing exactly who didn't understand who. You are absolutely pathetic. Kaiza must be rolling in his grave with the way you act. Shocked silence was the response to the normally happy and youthful Genin's remarks, before he continued his mounting tirade. You want to know what life is like for us? Let's start with Hinata, who has been treated as though she is worthless by most of her own family. Or Shino, whose entire clan are barely allowed to live in the village limits because of the bugs they raise inside of them. I was kicked out of the orphanage I lived in when I was 6, spent 3 months homeless, and even today I am either ignored or treated like trash by the vast majority of the populace. Inari was crying again already, and made a move to leave, before Naruto blocked him by jumping onto the stairs. Here is the real kicker though, Sasuke's entire clan was murdered by his beloved older brother. He even waited to kill their parents until Sasuke was close enough to hear them scream. You lost your father figure, but you still have a family that loves you, and provides for you. Judge not lest you be judged, and you have been judged a crybaby, and a coward. Naruto punctuated the end of his rant by slamming the front door on his way out of the house. Both Kakashi and Kurenai turned heated glares on Inari, one for their nephew as Kakashi thought and the other for their closest student. Not one word of that was a lie. Naruto considers himself lucky for being taken in off the street, but he still has to deal with prejudice and pain every day. Kurenai was the one who spoke, before leaving the table to go to the room she shared with Sakura and Hinata. Kakashi didn't even say a word, he just turned away before he tore the boy down anymore. Unable to take the gazes of the remaining ninja on him, Inari fled to his room, trying to understand how these people could live lives like they had and still maintain hope. A knock at his door roused his attention, before a soft voice spoke to him through the door. I'm sorry that Naruto-kun responded like that, but it's hard for him to look at you when you have people like your grandfather risking their lives to make yours better, and for you to insult their effort by saying they're doomed to fail. None of our lives have been easy, but that doesn't mean that we should give in and die. Life is like a chisel, it is used to chip away at the perfect block we all start as, and shape us through trial and error into something even more incredible. Meanwhile, Naruto was standing in the clearing that the tree climbing training was done in, practicing his jutsu and sparring with a group of clones. The trees bearing kunai marks from where Kiba and Sasuke practiced had long ago had these scars covered by others, Naruto's anger influencing him in using the last technique his father had been teaching him. After one severely overcharged futon, Detappa, all his clones were destroyed and he was passed out on the ground. His father had been telling the truth about the technique being a double-edged sword. His control absolutely shot while it was active. Hours later, with birds chirping and sun shining, Naruto awoke. A rather feminine face in his field of vision walking toward him. It stopped, however, when it saw he was awake. My eyes say woman, but my gut says guy. Oh well, might as well mingle with some of the populace I have yet to meet. Hey there, did you need something? The figure looked at Naruto before their eyes fell on his happuri, recognizing the mark on its surface. He wasn't with the ninja we saw earlier, reinforcements? I have to warn Zabuza-sama. Oh, I just came here to pick herbs for my father, he is very sick. Haku went straight for his best act, the worried child. He had been using this for Zabuza for a long time, and was one of the best at it. But why are you out here, and is that a ninja headband? It looks different than the ones I saw in town. Naruto looked at the boy, as he had decided to go with his gut on this one, curiously. No one mentioned meeting someone that dressed like that in town, or any effeminate-looking boys, so how did he see them without being seen himself? I was here to train, but I overdid it a little. What did the headbands you saw in town look like? Did they have a different symbol from mine? Haku made sure not to react to the question. Obviously this one was smarter than he had assumed. No, they were just shaped differently, and the ninja wearing them were carrying a wounded man on their shoulders. Oh, he saw Team 7, that's why my team didn't say anything. Alright, would you like some help picking those herbs you mentioned? No reason not to be polite, Naruto thought, might as well help before he went in. Thank you, they look like this. Haku raised one of the herbs in his basket, glad that he had help in assisting Zabuza. About an hour after they met, the two picking herbs were disturbed by a voice whose owner was just inside the edge of the clearing. There you are, Naruto, come on, sensei was getting worried about you. Hinata looked from Naruto to the boy. He was gathering herbs with. Hinata blushed slightly looking at him, thinking him more attractive than any boy she had met in Konoha. It seems you are needed elsewhere, Naruto-san, thank you for helping me. Naruto got up and dusted his hands before nodding to his new acquaintance. Before I go, could you tell us your name? After furrowing his lip for a few seconds, Haku nodded. Alright, my name is Haku, and before you ask, since so many people do, I am a girl. Many people think I'm a boy for some reason, I'm not sure why though. The two thoughts running through the genins' heads were shocked. What? I was sure it was a guy, no matter what my eyes and ears told me were Naruto's thoughts while Hinata was going through a crisis of awareness. I've never been as attracted to anyone as I was her weight. Does that mean I swing that way? What would father say if he found out? Hinata decided to activate her Byakugan to make sure she wasn't the butt of someone's strange idea of a joke. Leaving the two thoroughly confused genin, Haku turned around and left, not noticing Hinata activate her Byakugan on focus on her just to see if she was telling the truth. Oh, all of the kami above, she is a girl. Wait, I recognize those herbs, I was them in my burned paste. Oh no. That was Zabuza's accomplice. We have to report this quickly. Come on, Naruto, we have to report what just happened. Alright, Hinata-chan, and I'm sorry I just left last night, I needed to blow off some steam. Naruto hadn't stopped to think about how worried everyone would be, and felt a little guilty for leaving. That's alright, Naruto, thanks to you we just found Zabuza's accomplice. Naruto started at Hinata's words before remembering that the herbs they had been picking had orange insides, like the paste Hinata used on Kakashi. When the two returned, Kakashi and Kurenai were both still inside, Shino and Sakura guarding the bridge while Kiba and Sasuke made plans for their fight against Naruto. Kurenai-sensei, Kakashi-sensei, we just met Zabuza's accomplice. She makes medical salves like I do, so it'll only be 2 more days before he is fully recovered. Kurenai and Kakashi both turned in shock, seeing that neither student was harmed. Confused the two. If you met his accomplice, why aren't you hurt? Where is she? Naruto answered this time. We didn't realize it was his accomplice until right when we left. I woke up after training and she was gathering herbs. She said it was for her sick dad and I helped her. Hinata took up the conversation from that point. I recognized the herbs after we turned around though, they were the same ones I use in my burn paste. Kakashi took command as the most experienced jounin, quickly giving out his orders. Today is the last day of training, tomorrow we will all rest. Naruto, send a clone out tomorrow with Tazuna so we have a fast way to find out if Zabuza will attack at less than 100%. The next day, everyone will go to the bridge and Naruto will leave clones here to protect the family. We will let Shino and Sakura know when they get back. Everyone obeyed the one-time AMBU captain, before Kiba and Sasuke grabbed Naruto and let him out for their spar. We both know you are the best at taijutsu among us, but we are teammates, 2-on-1 you won't win. Naruto paused after hearing their unified statement before wondering exactly when they started getting along. He shrugged the thought off before taking his opening stance, standing perfectly straight with one hand behind his back and the other palm facing himself in front of his body. Kiba and Sasuke separated slightly before going into their own stances, knowing since it was going to be the big showdown soon no one would go all out. Kurenai volunteered to supervise/referee the match, so after everyone took position, they launched at each other with a cry of Hajime. Kiba went first, dashing straight at Naruto before launching a spinning elbow toward the sternum of the blonde. Naruto blocked the blow by raising the knee of his forward foot, immediately countering with a blazing fast jab at Kiba's chin. Kiba was struck with just enough force to stumble back awkwardly, Sasuke launching a kick at Naruto's legs in an attempt to trip him. Naruto simply launched into a forward somersault/axe kick that was interrupted by Kiba pulling on Sasuke's shoulders, removing him from danger. A stare-down commenced as Sasuke and Kiba tried to figure out how to beat Naruto, knowing that if jutsu were allowed, Akamaru and Kiba would both be able to fight, and with greater speed and ferocity. Sasuke changed his stance to the interceptor fist, hoping to bait Naruto into the first move, knowing Naruto primarily opened with kicks. The move worked, Naruto launching himself at Sasuke and lashing out with a straight thrust kick to the gut. Sasuke grabbed the kick he had predicted and held him still. Kiba took advantage of the idle target to try for a knife hand at his unprotected back. A smirk appeared on Naruto's face, however, as he bent backwards and did a handspring off Kiba's shoulders, causing the two to run into each other. A growl from Kiba and grunt from Sasuke occurred as they faced their opponent yet again. Naruto attacked once more, this time shouting his attack's name. Konoha Senpu! The twirling kick attack took Kiba by surprise, and knocked him out of the circle drawn for the spar. Sasuke focused more heavily on Naruto, determined to get at least one hit on the superior taijutsu user. Naruto's gaze faltered and became disbelieving, his stance faltering slightly. Sasuke took advantage and rushed him with a powerful straight, clipping Naruto as he began to right himself. Naruto dashed under Sasuke after recovering, stopping the counter kick Sasuke launched with one hand and uppercutting him with the other. Sasuke flew outside the circle same as Kiba had, bruised but still conscious. "Sasuke, your eyes!" came a shout from Kiba, who had gone to pick up his teammate. "What? What about them?" Kurenai walked forward and handed Sasuke a mirror, allowing him to look for himself. The Sharingan Sasuke let an odd whisper out, amazed by the eyes with a single spinning tomo and red irises. "Finally, now that I've unlocked the Sharingan, I'm one step closer to beating him." A wide smile broke out on his face, one mirrored by a minor extent to all present, glad that such a useful tool was resurfacing. Naruto heard the quiet echo of a growl in his head, showing that not everyone was pleased. Later the night before the attack was expected, while Naruto was keeping watch, he thought back to the growl he had heard when Sasuke's eyes awoke. "The Kyuubi has been satisfied ignoring everything that happens around me so far, why would the Sharingan bother it so much? I mean, the only Uchiha ever able to control it was Madara, and I doubt that either Sasuke or even Itachi will ever have the strength and prowess." He did a louder growl than after the fight began to build, wrenching Naruto's attention away from his own thoughts. He sighed and made another watch clone, before closing his eyes and focusing on the demon within him. When he opened his eyes, he was in his mindscape, complete with a massive Hokage monument and a brightly glowing sun. Instead of the rest of the village, however, was a giant red cage with a rage-filled demon inhabiting it. "Well, Fox? You've been trying to get my attention, what did you want to say?" Many would be shocked at his casual disregard for the giant, nearly unstoppable beast in front of him, but he had known for years, and while this was only his second time in here, he already knew the Kyuubi couldn't do anything to him. "It isn't wise to act so blaze with me, mortal. I may not be able to affect you right now, but I could always destroy your home after you die." A smirk had developed on the Kyuubi's face, thoughts of freedom and destruction often did that to him. "So why does Sasuke's new Sharingan bother you? Only Madara was ever strong enough to control you, and Sasuke is no Madara." The Kyuubi's smirk shrunk into a near grimace at the memory. Being controlled by Madara had led to his current position, and he was not fond of the experience. "First, stop bringing up that stain on history. Second, I have decided in my infinite wisdom that Sharingan wielders are untrustworthy thieves. You are stronger than a vast majority of shinobi your age, but you aren't strong enough. Should he betray you, or your life be threatened in the coming battle, I have generously decided that you may use some of my power to make up for your shortcomings." Naruto's jaw dropped in shock. The Kyuubi was being an arrogant ass, but still considerably nicer than he expected. After learning about his status as a Jinchuriki, Naruto read up and learned that most of them used the power of their burden when in combat. He had tried and eventually succeeded in contacting the demon, before being blown off for being too weak to ever use its power. Apparently the training he had been doing was acceptable to the Fox's standards of a strong container. Despite it insulting him anyway. "I thought you said I would never be worthy of fighting with your power, and that I was too weak in every way to handle it. A short huff of disdain met Naruto's question, before the Kyuubi spoke once more. You aren't worthy of my power, and it's only thanks to your insane guardian's training that your body will be able to handle my power, as your strength and durability have risen enough to access a cloak made of my chakra, with just one tail. Anymore, and not only will your body be badly burned, your mind will snap and I will take over. Naruto stared at the grinning demon, wondering why it told him it could take control when he used too much. Thank you, I promise I won't use your power unless all other options I have fail. A short bow of gratitude punctuated the statement, before Naruto left his seal. I almost don't hate this one. Of course he looks like his damned many times over, in this case literally father. There were worse options, at least I wasn't stuck inside an Uchiha. Snort keep getting stronger mortal, you just might be the one. The grand beast's thoughts strayed to the past once more, this time memories of better days going through its head. Naruto came out of his mindscape just in time to smell breakfast being made, signaling he had spent nearly 4 hours of real time in the trance-like state. He stood and stretched the kinks that had developed in his muscles out, a few satisfying pops coming when he flexed his back. He went inside to see the entire group gathered at the table, worry evident on the genins' faces. Kurenai and Kakashi were both composed, but Naruto could tell that his sensei was worried as well, most likely about his team. Naruto, you know today's plan, right? The blonde looked to Kakashi before nodding, making a group of 10 clones and setting them up around the house. Now that Tazuna's family has their own protection, let's go to the bridge. Zabuza will most likely be there, as will this Haku Naruto and Hinata told us of. She is apparently trained medically, so most likely means of attack are senbons and poisons. Kurenai and I will handle Zabuza, you all will protect Tazuna and distract his accomplice until our fight is finished. A unanimous nod from the genin and breakfast was devoured in silence. The assembled team stood, Tazuna soon after. Hinata stood at Tazuna's back, with Sasuke in front of him. Kiba and Shino flanked him, while Sakura stood to Sasuke's left. Naruto stood at Sasuke's right, the two sensei leading the troop through town. When they reached the bridge, the workers were all sprawled on the ground, most appeared to be unconscious. Tazuna nearly froze in terror, before one of the builders looked up, bleeding and close to unconsciousness. Run, Tazuna. AD demon attacked. The heavily injured man collapsed into darkness, unable to maintain awareness any longer. A mist rolled onto the bridge, bringing the group's guard up even higher. Instead of the rough tone that Team 7 expected, having been the only group to face Zabuza already, a bone-chilling laugh resounded through the fog. Hinata, having activated her Byakugan, realized that something had happened. Sensei, there's 3 fighters in the fog, not 2. Kakashi paled slightly. The laughter combined with the fog and Zabuza's known former associates led him to just one conclusion. Naruto, help me with this fog. Kakashi and Naruto went through hand seals mirroring each other, before letting out a twin shout of Futon, de Tapa. The already forceful attack grew as it was fired in tandem, sending hurricane-force winds into the mist. With such power, the swordsmen holding the mist released control of their jutsu, it draining too much chakra fighting the winds. As the bridge cleared, 3 distinct figures were revealed to all the non-Hyuga at the other side. Kakashi and Kurenai turned to one another, their plan not accounting for the extra player. On the nearly complete bridge stood Momochi Zabuza, demon of the hidden mist, his Kubikura Bocho at his side. To his right was a shorter, more slender person with dark hair and a hunter-nin mask, Zabuza's original accomplice, Haku. On his left, however, stood someone just as intimidating as the eyebrowless warrior. A tall, thin blonde with a mask similar to Haku's stood, twirling his long, needle-shaped sword around his fingers. Kurira Kushimaru, one of the strongest and most ruthless ninja ever produced by Kirigakure. He wielded the Nuabari, a sword that worked as a giant sewing needle. He favored the silent killing technique like Zabuza, but was an expert in kenjutsu even without it. Among his many evil deeds was the murder of his own sensei, and he had left the village even before Zabuza's failed coup. His favorite method of murder was to crucify his victims with the wire attached to his sword. What is this, Zabuza? Willing to align yourself with that psychotic sadist just to better do Gato's bidding? Kakashi's frustration was evident. He didn't even think that Kushimaru was still alive. I called back up probably the same time you did. If I have to resort to a lunatic like him, consider it your fault for escaping last time. The same high-pitched grating laughter as earlier came once more, it even still echoed around them given all the empty space. My mental state notwithstanding, you should show a little respect to your senpai Zabuza. After all, you did have to get me to bail you out of your trouble here. Irritation briefly flashed in Zabuza's eyes before he turned his glare back on the Konoha shinobi. Alright, one chance to give up before you're either split in 2 or crucified. The killing intent released with the statement left Sasuke's hands shaking and Sakura shivering in dread. See, Kakashi, the boy is still shaking. Even though it couldn't be seen, the smirk could be heard in Zabuza's voice. I'm shaking in excitement. Sasuke lowered himself into a stance, kunai drawn in his right hand. The shout was taken as the sign to begin, Kakashi squaring off mano-a-mano with Zabuza, Kiba, Sasuke, and Akamaru against Haku, and Naruto and Kurenai against Kushimaru. Shino, Hinata, and Sakura remaining with Tazuna in case one of their assailants made it past the front line. Kiba activated his Shikyaku no Jutsu, and Sasuke his Sharingan as they closed in on the masked girl. Akamaru, Jujin Bunshin. A puff of smoke surrounding his dog, and now there were two Kibas, both dashing at top speed to take out the fast Kunoichi. Gutsuga. Two whirling dervishes of clawed death spun their way to the enemy, who was forced to jump in effort to dodge, but Sasuke had seen that coming, and made 6 hand seals. Katon, Gakkaku no Jutsu. A gout of flames rushed from Sasuke's mouth to his Kunoichi target, a cloud of smoke appearing when it reached her. When the cloud cleared, however, there was only a mirror of ice where his target had been, reflecting her faceless image back at him. Your eyes and his wild attacks are making this troublesome, forgive me, but now I will go all out as well. Water vapor in the air gathered into a dome around the two hot-headed genin, before the temperature dropped 10 degrees in an instant. Hayaton Hijitsu, Makyu Hayashu. The water vapor that had surrounded Sasuke and Kiba froze into mirrors like the one Haku was hiding in, forming a dome-shaped prison around the two. This is my ultimate, inescapable technique, surrender, before I'm forced to kill you. Kiba and Sasuke exchanged a glance, before nodding and setting themselves up back-to-back, Akamaru joining and forming a triangle formation. We won't ever surrender to a criminal like you. Sasuke, let's do this. The battle between Zabuza and Kakashi raged on another section of the bridge, all of the missing Nin's techniques being immediately used against him. Something isn't right. The Sharingan allows him to copy ninjutsu, but he is performing all my techniques in tandem with me. Zabuza struggled against the desire to end this fight fast using his strongest jutsu, and instead moved to close in with his giant blade. Kakashi was glad that he was so practiced in hiding his emotions, otherwise the shock that Zabuza had unconsciously resisted his hypnotic suggestion would likely put him on the chopping block. Seeing the massive sword closing in, Kakashi made a split-second decision to unveil something he had avoided using for years. A smoke cloud shrouded his right hand temporarily, stalling Zabuza. When it dispersed, it revealed a weapon that Kakashi had not been known to carry in the bingo books. A gleaming white tanto that practically glowed with chakra was held in a forward grip, almost proud to be used once more. The white light chakra saber of Hataki Tsukumo, legendary white fang of Konoha. Desperate enough to beg your father's spirit to help you, Kakashi? In spite of the taunt, Zabuza was wary of the blade. It focused, sharpened, and purified chakra sent into it by the wielder, which gave it the white glow. Even someone a complete amateur with a tanto could use its abilities to fire waves of energy off the blade like a samurai, and Zabuza knew that no matter what anyone said about Kakashi, he was no amateur. Not so much, Zabuza. More like a duel between swordsmen, a true fight to the finish. Kakashi launched a wave of chakra from his sword the moment he finished his statement. It struck the Kubikura Bocho hard and with a screeching noise left a gash on the other legendary weapon. Zabuza smirked once more, his wariness overcome by his love of a true clash of blades. Alright Kakashi, let me show you how it's done. Kurenai and Naruto both watched Kushimaru cautiously, knowing this fight would most likely be a stalemate until one of the others finished their battle and came in to assist. Kushimaru, on the other hand, looked rather disinterested with his opponents. That brat Zabuza took the real game and left me with a kid and his fap material. Next time an old ally asks me for help, I'm going to sew them to my wall. The lean swordsman abruptly dashed at the two, testing to see if he would have any fun this day. Naruto responded with a volley of shuriken, while Kurenai formed a few quick hand seals. Megan, Jabakisatsu was whispered by Kurenai, before she vanished. Kushimaru had deflected all the shuriken approaching him already, before he felt his body lock up. A tree seemed to grow from the bridge and surround him, leaving only his neck and head free. Kurenai leaned forward and went to stab him with a kunai, only for Kushimaru to bring up the Nobari and parry her attack, diving away from her to avoid Naruto's quick attempt at a kick. You really thought a genjutsu would be able to take out someone as experienced as me? I was preparing to break it the moment you vanished. After all, the only person to ever shun Shin without evidence was Uchiha Shursui, and he's dead. Kurenai hadn't really expected that to work, but without genjutsu there wasn't much she could do against a high-level opponent. In spite of her skills, she was a rookie jounin, and hadn't trained as extensively in other combat forms. Naruto frowned at their opponent, who was clearly better than them even if he had lost a step or two from age. He formed a hand seal, and glowing lines appeared on his outfit. Kai! The blonde swordsman looked on in new interest, fuinjutsu being rather rare in his experience. Immediately he was set to the defensive as Naruto moved at speeds more along the lines of a skilled jounin than a genin. Kushimaru used his high flexibility to weave through Naruto's attacks, before sending a thrust kick into Naruto's gut, and jumping back to make some distance. Naruto quickly righted himself and set up a stance that the old swordsman found familiar. Hand held palm back in front and the other locked behind the back while the fighter stands straight up. That crazy bastard that used the Hashiman to drive the old group back used that stance. Hey kid, you don't happen to know anyone by the name of Mato, do you? Naruto looked shocked that the enemy would talk with him like this, but decided he might as well answer. My name is Mato Naruto, son of the resplendently youthful green beast of Konoha, Mato Guy. This may just be fun yet, after all the kid is too young for the gates, but he is fast and strong. Kushimaru didn't realize the mistake he had made focusing solely on the child until a field of pure darkness surrounded him, all sensation removed. Damn it! I can't believe I made a rookie mistake like that, but I can still salvage this. He began spinning his sword in front of him to deal with incoming kunai and shuriken, while simultaneously building his chakra to release this genjutsu. Kurenai was breathing heavily, the Kokwanjyo no Jutsu being far more chakra intensive and less subtle than most genjutsu in Konoha's archives. It was also, fortunately, much harder to dispel, and removed all 5 senses, rather than just sight as one would expect. Now Naruto. Even he won't be able to dispel it too quickly. Naruto dashed to get behind the swordsman, his front inaccessible due to the spinning blade. Black cloth fell from under his sleeves, preparing the technique he was sure would win the fight. Sasuke and Kiba were barely able to keep from being put down by the skilled kunoichi they fought. Kiba's and Akamaru's high speed and increased senses allowed them to react fast enough to typically avoid most needles, though Akamaru was running low on chakra. Sasuke was using his Sharingan, which had gained a second tomo from the struggle, to deflect the Senbon with a kunai. Hey Mutt, I think I know what to do. Kiba had heard Sasuke's whispered voice, understanding that a plan had finally been made. He nodded when Sasuke explained what to do, even though he found it distasteful. It was something a smart ninja would do. Stop. We surrender already. The reverse from the earlier position of never giving up surprised Haku, but as she couldn't hear what Sasuke was saying nor had she seen him speak, she accepted their surrender. You should have done so far earlier, but I will grace you with your lives. Haku wasn't fool enough to leave her mirrors, but she did do exactly what Sasuke was hoping for, and look him in the eye. In spite of not possessing his Sharingan long, Sasuke had read about every technique it was capable of, and hoped his plan would succeed based on his earlier test with Kiba during training. Haku was exhausted from keeping her dome up so long, and needed to get some rest or take a food pill. Her eyes shut moments after looking the Uchiha in the eye, never noticing that his 2 tomo were spinning slowly counterclockwise. The mirror dome shattered as its creator drifted into sleep, Sasuke following after from chakra exhaustion. Kiba made sure to tie up their foe before bringing Sasuke and their captive back to the remainder of their team. The ringing sound made by the clashing of Zabuza and Kakashi's blades continued unabated for the whole time Haku had her mirrors out. Kakashi didn't have the stamina that Zabuza did, but he had a far lighter weapon and his Sharingan didn't take much chakra when he wasn't using its abilities. A quick duck and another shallow cut appeared on Zabuza, who seemed to be channeling some sort of Berserker Gang abilities and shrugged off the slew of cuts on his body, as well as the scratches adorning his sword. A backflip to gain distance and Kakashi fired another energy wave at the monster he was fighting. It was avoided with a spin to the right. Kakashi had been injured just as Zabuza had, a large cut across his torso that his flak jacket had kept from being too severe, and he had switched hands after 3 of his fingers broke in his right hand from Zabuza's heavy strikes. In terms of pure kenjutsu talent, Kakashi was not as good as Zabuza, but he already had a plan to win this fight. All he needed was a distraction to implement it. He weaved sideways and cut a foot off the end of Zabuza's sword by running right on chakra through his dad's old weapon. A sound caught the attention of Zabuza's ears and he turned his head slightly to see out of the corner of his eye what had happened. Kakashi jumped at the chance he'd been given to finally end this match of blades. He sheathed his tanto in a scabbard that had appeared on his back when he unsealed it, and used the only quick kill technique he had that didn't need hand seals to accomplish. Zabuza heard an odd sound akin to a heavy pulse mixed with high winds, and turned his head back from the ruins of Haku's jutsu just in time to see the Yandame Hokage's famous Rasengan gunning right into his ribs. He felt a terrible pain like his flesh being ground up, hammered, and soaked in acid simultaneously, before he lost his grip on his blade and was thrown back by the force of a small explosion. He barely made it back up to his feet, and all of his ribs were most likely broken from the attack he had suffered, leaving him at his opponent's mercy. Naruto let out a shout that would most likely be the last thing Kushimaru ever heard. Kaimon Kai! Omote wrench! Just as Kushimaru broke the genjutsu he'd been in, he felt a devastating kick launch him into the air. The young boy that had distracted him for the woman's genjutsu wrapped him in cloth, holding it tightly enough that without his sword, which had been dropped when he'd been kicked, there was no way for him to escape. He felt himself start spinning rapidly as the high point of the arc he was in was reached. He felt his momentum shift so that his head was pointed at the ground. Naruto held on as tight as he could, not letting what he knew would happen from this technique dissuade him. The centrifugal force of the spin worked to disorient the target and to increase acceleration during the fall by drilling through the air. With as hard as he had kicked him, and considering how high they were and the fact they were falling towards concrete, Kushimaru would die and Naruto himself would be in no position to move much. Naruto was surprised when he heard Kushimaru laughing one last time, and even more so that he was able to talk during this fall. "I'll see you burn in hell with me, Gaki." Naruto then heard a sizzling noise coming from Kushimaru, one he recognized from his training. "He's covered in paper bombs." "Damn it, I haven't made Hokage yet, I don't want to die." Naruto knew there was little chance of him escaping from the explosion soon to happen, and only hoped that none of his fellow shinobi were in the blast range. The two blondes struck the ground with a sickening crunch, the elder shinobi's neck breaking instantly. Naruto was in a great deal of pain from the fall, but he managed to roll away from his foe's corpse shortly before the tags detonated. A bright flash and a wave of heat that seared his back coming from the crater he had just escaped. Naruto was thrown to the ground barely maintaining consciousness, the majority of the team exhausted and badly wounded from their battle. Some, like Kurenai and Sasuke, had little in physical damage but were suffering from chakra exhaustion. Kakashi and Kiba were both out of chakra and badly injured. He still had some chakra left, but he couldn't even stand up on his own anymore. The last thing Naruto heard before blacking out was staccato clapping and a low growl. All the still conscious shinobi turned to the edge of the bridge, where Gato stood behind an army of bandit thugs. "Heh, looks like the baby demon, his per-ice princess, and the scarecrow geezer couldn't hack it, right boys?" A resounding laugh from the mercenaries brought Kakashi's spirits down. As tired and hurt as they were, even pathetic untrained rabble like this was too much for them. "What the fuck, you leprechaun bastard?" How Zabuza managed that shout with the level of damage he had suffered was a mystery, but it still earned a response. "I was never going to pay you, and the way things happened is better than I hoped. Now you're all so weak you won't even be able to fight back while they kill you all. I think I'll take the girls though, good-looking young women can be quite the commodity. The woman I think I'll just keep." Shivers of fear and disgust ran down the women's spines, knowing exactly what scum like him would do. Zabuza just dashed straight through the thugs with a wordless snarl, a menacing aura around him and a grinning demon looking over his shoulder. The thugs stabbed him repeatedly as he ran through them, lashing out barehanded against their ranks, smashing them with enough force to nearly liquefy their internal organs. He caught Gato as he turned and tried to run away, strangling the life out of the little pawns with a wide grin showing his sharpened teeth, his bandages having been torn by a sword blow that exposed the inside of one of his cheeks. Zabuza tossed the body of the now deceased crime lord to the side, before turning back to the thugs. He took 2 steps closer to the group before he fell over dead, the internal bleeding finally bringing the fighter down. "Hey, these guys killed our meal ticket, let's go take what he owes us from the town," one of the thugs said before all of them stopped once again from fear. Naruto had somehow stood back up, a malicious red aura shaped like a fox with one tail covering his body. He just glared at the thugs, before forming 3 hand seals he called out in a grisly voice. "Tatsu Ushi Tori? Suetun, Suiryu no Mugen no Mai." The thugs stared in horror as all of the water left behind by the mirrors coalesced into a single giant figure. The massive water dragon glared at the thugs with glowing red eyes, before roaring and flying at the group. It struck them 3 ranks in and killed all those in the immediate area. The mercenaries weren't out of hot water yet though, as the water quickly reformed and slammed itself into their group repeatedly. They broke ranks and fled, but none of them escaped. The dragon finally dissipated when no hostile targets remained, along with the cloak of red energy around Naruto. The entirety of Wave's citizenry watched in awe as they had gathered after Tsunami, and Inari had been saved, Inari gathering them all himself. Naruto collapsed unconscious after his technique and cloak faded, Kurenai gathering him up and walking back to Tazuna's home with the rest of the group, all of them too tired to converse on the way back. Kakashi looked at Naruto worriedly every once in a while, fearing that his seal had destabilized. The rest of the genin that were conscious looked shocked by the carnage they had seen on the bridge, unable to grasp what their classmate had done. Later on that night, after she had recovered, Kurenai went back to the bridge and took the Nobari, remembering that Naruto had once mentioned wanting a sword to increase his skill set. No one knew for sure how Naruto would answer the questions the next day was doubtless to bring. All they could do was hope it was still Naruto they would be talking to tomorrow. Naruto sat straight up the moment he awoke. At first he was confused about what had happened and how he had got into a bed, but then he remembered the rage he had felt as he drifted in between being conscious and unconscious. He remembered Gato shouting about letting the girls live, but taking Kurenai to be his personal toy. He remembered the feeling of Zabuza's power as the juggernaut of a man had launched himself at Gato and killed him. Naruto remembered how he had drawn the Kyuubi's power to keep himself conscious, but the power boost had been enough to use the Suetun, Suiryu no Mugen no Mai, dance of the infinite water dragon. That brought to mind how he had killed every last one of the thugs still standing, crushing and drowning the hundreds of bandit mercenaries that Gato had brought. He shivered. He knew that as a shinobi he would have to kill at one point, but he hadn't expected his first time killing to be a massacre. Thankfully, the mix of the Kyuubi's volatile chakra, which numbed all emotions but rage, and the advice his father had given him and Lee about killing and how a person was only bad or evil if they enjoyed it, had kept him from freezing up during the combat. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted as a soft voice called to him from the doorway. "Naruto, I'm glad to see you're awake. Are you alright?" Naruto looked at his sensei and smiled. Kurenai's regularly immaculate appearance was frizzled, her hair not exactly where she liked it, and bags under her eyes. The effect was humanizing in a way. His sensei had somehow kept up her looks even during battle, but the genuine concern in her tone kept Naruto from musing for too long. "I'm alright, Kurenai-sensei. How about you? I've never seen you so disheveled before." Kurenai let out a light sigh as her worries about her closest student were put to rest. She loved Hinata like a little sister, but Naruto was who she spent the most time, and he had grown very close to her during their one-on-one training he requested every day they met. "A lot better now that you're awake. I've been watching you the vast majority of the time, trying to keep you comfortable. I only left to grab some food a minute ago." "Of course, you would choose to wake up when I'm not in the room." Naruto felt his cheeks slightly flush at the idea that Kurenai had stayed up so long to make sure he was alright while he was unconscious, but thankfully the lights were off in the room and she didn't see. "Thanks, sensei. How long was I out?" Kurenai looked almost disappointed that he didn't respond to her remark at the end, but answered him anyway. "You've been out for 2 days, you were already exhausted and injured before the Kyuubi manifested, and that seemed to weaken you further the moment it shut off." Naruto winced remembering the Kyuubi cloak he had accessed on the bridge. He hadn't told his teammates he could activate that power thanks to earning some small measure of respect from the beast through his intense training. Yeah? I was gonna tell you I could do that, but we didn't really have any time alone before the fight, and I hadn't been planning on using it. I guess I'll have to tell everyone about it now though." Kurenai was upset that he hadn't trusted his teammates enough to tell them without them seeing, but she knew how the villagers had mistreated him before Guy had adopted him, and how they ignored him completely afterward. She even knew that he had to use a henge to shop, because the people that ran the store would ignore him and ask for the next in line while he was standing waiting to pay. "Yes, Naruto, you are going to tell them. You should have already told them, they are your teammates and friends, they have a right to know." Naruto looked away while his sensei scolded him, too ashamed to meet her gaze. He knew he should have told them, after all he had told Shikamaru, but he was afraid that they would no longer accept him if they knew. "I'm not angry, Naruto. I just want you to trust them as much as you trust me. It's important to trust your comrades, I know you work well together, but lingering doubts can affect your teamwork, and I don't want you to get hurt." "What? She means all of us, right?" Naruto's blush was now bright enough to be seen, and Kurenai had moved closer to him rather than keep speaking by the doorway. She had apparently not noticed her little slip of the tongue, but became worried when she saw him flush. "Is he doing that because of me? No, he can't be. Must just feel feverish or too warm from all the blankets. I'm his sensei and almost a decade older than him, he can't like me." Kurenai had taken to usually calling him Naruto-kun, but on mission she was all business from the second they met their contact. She knew they were a little closer than average for a Jounin sensei and genin, but she saw how Guy's relationship as a father figure for Lee had helped the academy dead last grow. She didn't think there was anything wrong or untoward for the way she felt about the genin. Sure, he looked really cute to her sometimes, but she thought it was like he was a puppy, not weird at all. Kurenai's best friend Anko teased her about it all the time though, at least since she had drank a little and told her. Her crazy friend had done just as expected, and accused her of being a crater robber. Anko had even come up with the theory that the real reason Kurenai had never gone on a date was that everyone that asked had been too old for her, and that she decided to be a Jounin sensei as something like a dating service. Kurenai stayed calm and denied these obviously false allegations, even if they had been incredibly embarrassing. Sensei? Kurenai looked back at Naruto, realizing she had space out while remembering Anko's crazy insinuations about just what she taught Naruto when they practiced genjutsu alone in her house. "Yes, Naruto?" Naruto looked around the room, before continuing. "I was wondering what happened to the Nuabari. I wanted to keep it and learn to use it to balance out my combat, and not be disadvantaged by longer-reaching opponents or swordsmen." Kurenai smiled, glad she remembered correctly about Naruto saying he wanted a sword, but thought to tease him a little before giving it to him. Their mission was more or less complete, after all, and it had been too long since they had spoken about anything normal. "Oh? Are you sure you wouldn't rather have the Kubikiribocho? It is way bigger and more easily recognized." Her banter left Naruto frowning, however. He had killed Kushimaru, and if he wanted his sword he deserved it. That was how that psycho had gained it in the first place. Kubikiribocho belongs to whoever killed Zabuza, which I'm going to say is a mixture of Kakashi-sensei and Zabuza overstraining his own body. Besides, Zabuza earned my respect when he charged Gato and rampaged through his thugs. Kushimaru was nothing but a sadist that was too faded from his prime and too proud to quit. Kurenai saw that her banter attempt failed a second time, Naruto not being recovered enough to respond wittily. Well, I did recover Nuabari from the battlefield for you, but did you have any plans to learn to use it? Naruto nodded his head. He had several ideas, but none of them were likely. I was going to ask Kakashi-sensei if he could give me some tips or scrolls on sword combat, then attempt to mix his insight and my memories to replicate Kushimaru's sword style. Kurenai frowned. She knew it would take personal instruction to really become any good with a sword, and she had a better idea of who to ask. You know, I have a friend in ANBU that specializes in kenjutsu. I bet I could get you a few lessons with her. If you'd like me to, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled as the friendly honorific resurfaced, and nodded excitedly. He would never pass up training from an ANBU operative if they were willing. It would take time out from the rest of his training, but he could still just make clones for most of it. He could even send a clone to continue his genjutsu training with Kurenai, if she didn't take offense to not training him in person. Their conversation was broken by Kakashi turning on the light in the room they were in, his visible eye closed in what might be his largest eye smile ever. Naruto found the act rather disturbing, however, as he didn't understand how a person could bend their eyelids into a U shape. Maybe Kakashi had to train his eye muscles to do that, or it was some kind of genetic mutation. The laid-back voice that came from behind the mask brought Naruto from his musings, for now. Good to see such a close relationship between sensei and student. Also, welcome back to the land of the living, Naruto. Naruto managed a short nod despite his blush and the unnerved feeling he got watching Kakashi smile. Kurenai didn't blush at all and assumed Kakashi was praising her teaching rather than accusing her of pedophilia. Although she found it odd he referred to it as seeing despite his eyes currently being closed. Everyone is having dinner right now. I'm sure they would love it if you came down and told them exactly what happened. Kakashi's smile had left him, his eye now open and peering at Naruto suspiciously. He knew his sensei was extremely skilled, and that this was his son, but he was worried the Kyuubi had tried to escape the other day and that Naruto might be suffering from a weakened seal. Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously, before he nodded and agreed to come downstairs. Of course, he had just woke up after 2 days of rest and a heavy injury, so Kurenai insisted that she help him with the stairs, even as Naruto protested that he was fine. When they reached the dining room, the rest of the group turned and saw Naruto. Hinata and Shino had relieved looks, while Kiba, Sasuke, and Sakura looked as though they were trying to figure him out. Naruto sat down in one of the chairs with Kurenai's assistance, before once more scratching his head nervously. So, I guess you guys want to know what happened at the bridge? Team 7 collectively nodded, while his own team just looked at him in anticipation. Alright, what do you guys know about the Kyuubi attack? Sakura answered instantly. She had tried to memorize every important historical event in Leaf history, though there were some that were no longer taught. On October 10th, nearly 13 years ago, the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked our village. It dealt major damage before the Yondaime killed it, sacrificing himself in the process. Naruto nodded, and proceeded to take a few calming breaths. That is what the books say, and it is mostly correct, with one exception. The group leaned forward, wanting to know what this had to do with Naruto. Killing a bijou only disperses it for a short time, a few years at most. In order to truly save the village, the Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi away into a newborn baby, the only way the container's chakra coils could handle the massive expansion brought by becoming a Jinchuriki. Sasuke's eyes widened, realizing where this was going and envying Naruto for his gift. The baby used was born that day, namely, I was born approximately 5 minutes before the Kyuubi's rampage began. Sakura took on a panicked expression, remembering how her parents warned her to stay away from Naruto. You're the Kyuubi! Sakura's shriek was met with a frustrated sigh by both Jounin and all the other genin. No, Sakura. I am not the Kyuubi. It was sealed inside me, like rations into a scroll or anything else that is sealed. Sakura's breath calmed as she got over the shock and looked at the situation logically. The Yondaime was famous for being the greatest seal master alive at the time, and he had performed the sealing at cost of his life. Naruto had never displayed destructive or aggressive tendencies besides at the bridge, which was a combat situation. Neither of her parents were skilled with seals, her mother a civilian and her father a retired Chunin. The odd cloak of red energy he had used was shaped like a fox, but it seemed to flow from his core. Her usually intelligent brain figured that Naruto was being honest, he was not the Kyuubi. As she calmed down, the others thought about what they had just learned. Shino had expected that for some time, though he only had situational evidence. Hinata just felt her admiration for Naruto increase. Sasuke felt that the Kyuubi was the only reason Naruto was so strong, and that Sasuke would be stronger if he had its power. Kiba didn't really have an opinion. Naruto was Naruto, and this didn't really change anything about him. The two jounin had already known, and thus had already formed opinions about our young hero. Hinata was the first to speak, easily the more talkative of Naruto's teammates. Is that why the villagers treat you like they do? They jump to the conclusion that you are the Kyuubi like Sakura-san just did? Sakura looked down in shame at having voiced that thought before considering all of the facts, determined not to be so judgmental from now on. Yeah, of course, I don't blame them too much. They lost their families and livelihoods, a lot of them. They don't bother to think that I lost my parents too. I'd probably have been a complete moron if Guy hadn't adopted me. Sasuke's envy dissipated as he heard that Naruto was mistreated because of his power. He wanted to kill Itachi, but there was no point if he was hated for the rest of his life afterwards. Gaining power was important, but Sasuke believed it important to be recognized. He did care for his teammates, even if he didn't show it. Kiba had essentially become his best friend, which was important even if he was his only real friend. Kakashi gave another of his physically improbable smiles, and looked at his students proud that they had realized the truth. He wasn't going to tell Naruto that his birth father was his sensei, but he still felt a connection to him. He had no idea that Naruto already knew, or he would have offered him a lot more than just the few scrolls he had given him. Naruto, however, already knew that Kakashi was his biological father's student, and planned to discuss it in private when he asked about using his sword. Tazuna and his family had been silent for the story, and none of them felt any animosity for the hero of their country. They hadn't lost anything in the Kyuubi attack, and Naruto had saved them from being overwhelmed by Gado's thugs. They didn't really understand too much about what he was talking about, but it seemed that he was the same as before and he didn't look like a fox, so he wasn't one. Naruto was glad that as soon as Sakura's misunderstanding had cleared, everyone accepted him. Oh, Kakashi-sensei, I want to ask you about something. Kakashi looked at Naruto as the conversation veered to easier subjects, his lazy gaze hiding his impressive mind. I'm going to keep the Nobari, and I was hoping you could help me a little with some advice or something so I can get started training with it. Kakashi was thrilled to have another opportunity to help his sensei's son, and agreed to meet Naruto outside in an hour. Kurenai objected, saying that Naruto should rest more, but Naruto stated that he was fine and 2 days was more than enough sleep. When the two of them got outside, Naruto brought up something that he felt Kakashi should know. Kakashi-sensei, I know who my biological parents are, and I know my dad was your sensei. Kakashi was shocked. When had Naruto found out? If the Hokage knew, why didn't he tell him? These questions burned through his mind before coming up with his own answer. The physical resemblance to the Yondaime would become more prominent if Naruto was seen around known acquaintances of him. That included both Kakashi and Jiraiya. If Kakashi's guess was right, Naruto's knowledge was kept from them for the same reason he hadn't been able to help Naruto in the open by adopting him. How did you find out, Naruto? It was supposed to be an S-rank secret. Naruto grinned and gave a nice guy pose, bringing a subconscious twitch from Kakashi. One of my classmates told me I looked a lot like him, and I bothered Gigi until he told me when I asked for a paternity test. I could swear he was glaring at Dad though when I said paternity. Kakashi's sweat dropped. He knew that Naruto would never have learned what that word meant without either engaging in the activity to cause it or Guy telling him. It was probably a good thing that Guy had though, now Naruto had some of his mother's things at least. He would have to make Chunin to gain his father's, but Naruto would most likely do that on his first try. Well, Naruto, if you already know, then I guess I can tell you about him while I show you the basics. 3 hours later, a winded Naruto and Kakashi came back to the house. Naruto's stamina wasn't completely recovered yet, and Kakashi had neglected his training since leaving ANBU enough that he was tired as well. His injuries and fatigue from the bridge played a large part in his exhaustion though. Naruto was smiling brightly though, glad to have learned a little about his first father. To Naruto's surprise, an extra person was in the dining room from when he had left. The kunoichi that had helped Zabuza was being convinced by Hinata that she should join them and come to Konoha. Wild promises about her being treated practically like she was royalty for having a kekei genkai and about the world's most delicious cinnamon buns being used as evidence. Hinata even promised that she could still be a kunoichi if she wanted and that she would be her bestest friend if she agreed to come. Haku eventually relented, more interested in Hinata's promise to help her think for herself and be her friend than the cinnamon buns. Naruto briefly wondered why, until the rest of the team gave him Haku's backstory that Hinata had apparently pulled from the quiet girl while he was out. She had come from Kiri, where kekei genkai were purged as being evil, and had been taken in by Zabuza because he gave her a purpose. Her father had killed her mother, then attempted the same on her. Ice spears rose from the ground and saved her, but she had lost her will to live. Naruto promised he would ask the Hokage to take her in himself, as he had a special relationship with the man. Both Hinata and Haku had thanked him for his support, Haku overwhelmed by the kindness these people that she had fought against showed her. Naruto shrugged off their thanks and returned to bed, too tired from straining his recovery to stay up the rest of the night with his fellow genin. Kurenai had already gone to bed. no longer keeping herself awake with worry and not having to watch over Naruto now that he was awake. A smile was on Naruto's face when he fell asleep, one destined to be wiped off as his dreams were the only place those he had killed were still alive. A week later, both Team 7 and Team 8 along with Haku were gathered at the completed bridge, readying to return home. Inari was crying, and Naruto seemed to only just be holding back his own tears. His efforts proved in vain when Tazuna announced the name of the bridge, however. Thank you from the bottoms of our hearts. We would like you to take this letter guaranteeing cheaper trade rates to the Hokage, and welcome you all back anytime you wish. It is all thanks to you that the great Naruto bridge is complete. Naruto's tears finally managed to break free when the name was announced, the gratitude and appreciation from these people more than he was ready for. Everyone smiled at Naruto as he bowed his head in respect to the people of Wave, where he was first labeled a hero after a quick promise to return one day. The assembled ninja and their new friend turned and left, cheers following them for the first few minutes of their journey. The return trip was not at the breakneck pace they had used to reach Wave, but was faster than Kakashi's pace had been when his team had made the original journey with Tazuna. Naruto spent what spare time they had practicing with the Nuabari under Kakashi's advisement, and refusing to teach Sasuke the jutsu he had used to defeat all the thugs. Sasuke was upset until Naruto explained that he simply had yet to gain enough chakra to use the technique, as it took twice as much to form as a regular Suiton, Suryudan no Jutsu, Water Dragon Bullet, and its cost increased the longer it was active. Hinata spent most of her time convincing Haku to open up to her, and telling her about everything she was legally able in Konoha. Shino looked around at the bugs mildly, but didn't see anything he was unfamiliar with. Sasuke got Kakashi to give him a couple jutsu scrolls for right-on techniques as his team had their affinities tested by Kakashi back in Wave. Sakura practiced repeating her hand seals for genjutsu as fast as she could, speeding up whenever she felt comfortable. Kiba just worked on the exercise Kakashi gave him, channeling Doton chakra into a rock to make it bigger. When the gates of Konoha appeared, the team was definitely ready to go home. They knew that they would have a lot of work and explaining to do when they met the Hokage, but for now, they just let the sight of their home, hopeful home, in Haku's case, wash over them. Naruto smiled, excited to start training with his sensei's friend, and eager for whatever would come next. So, Kakashi, you decided to wait to signal back up until after you fought Zabuza, rather than when you were far closer and had just beat the Demon Brothers. If demoting you back to Genin and making it illegal for you to own Ika were options for punishment, I would use them. After I let you have a friendly spar with Enma and I. The Sandaime kept up the same kind look he usually had, but his promises of cruel and unusual punishment were all the more disturbing because of it. Kakashi was quaking in fear at the thought of no smut to read, but the idea of sparring with the Sandaime and Enma was ludicrous. Kakashi was good, but without the Sharingan he was an underpowered version of his father, and even the White Fan would never have been able to beat Sarutobi Hiruzen in a straight match. Hell, he doubted that his father and the three Sannin all together would have been able to beat the man in his prime. Sarutobi was just that good. Now I also have been told by Kurenai that you neglected to teach anyone but the Uchiha on your team any practical skills. Tell me, is training one arrogant child to be minimally useful for solo missions and leaving your two other students to die a good example of the teamwork you so defend? Kakashi winced from the low blow. He had been planning to teach at least Sakura something, but she had never even once asked him. The whole reason he did a C rank was to show his team the dangerous life shinobi led, but the danger of this particular mission was too high. Be grateful that the acquisition of the Nubari and a prospective new Kekkei Genkai in the village will make the elders happy enough to leave me alone for a few weeks, otherwise my bad mood would be taken out on you. You aren't getting paid for your next 6 months of missions as my lenient punishment. Kakashi held back a sigh. A new Ika was due out in 2 months, and the exorbitant cost of buying signed first editions meant he would either buy it and skip a few meals, or have to settle for a regular copy. His stomach would hate him for this. I understand and accept your mercy, Hokage-sama. Now, if there is nothing further. The Sandaime shook his head, signifying that Kakashi would stay while he talked to the combined teams, Kurenai having sent a basic report ahead. Bring the rest in. A shadow appeared at the Hokage's door and let the remainder of Team 7, as well as Team 8 and Haku inside. The assembled group inclined their heads in respect to the old warrior, before he began speaking once more. You all have accomplished much in this mission, securing a favorable trade agreement with Wave and acquiring the Nuabari marks far more than an average pay for an A-ranked mission. Naruto, you are free to keep the blade as your own, in lieu of bounty on Kushimaru. Naruto nodded his head gratefully, not willing to speak until the Hokage was finished. Now then, Yuki-Haku, I believe? The slender girl gave a quiet affirmative, before the Hokage continued. The advance report stated that Zabuza had raised and trained you for several years until now, and that with his death you have come to Konoha to seek new purpose in life. All I need to know is, do you bear any grievance toward Jounin Hatake Kakashi for his role in your mentor's demise? Haku went to respond and hesitated. Did she have anything against Kakashi? She knew it was just a conflict of interest that led to what happened, and that Kakashi was the one to bury Zabuza and leave the Kubikura Bocho with him even though he had the right to take as the victor of their fight. But she had been very depressed with her master's death before Hinata had worked to try and bring her some measure of contentment. She took a few deep breaths before replying. No, Hokage-sama. Hataki-san is not the one responsible for Zabuza-sama's death. That traitorous pig that Zabuza-sama ended like the cretin he was is the only one I can blame. Hiruzen nodded, having suspected as much since the girl was in better shape energy and injury-wise than anyone on the team save Naruto, who had been unconscious when she first woke up. She would have been able to kill the tired Kakashi before dying, if she had really blamed him for her master's end. Very well. You will be tested in both knowledge and skill by one of my Tokubetsu Jounin to decide your place among my ranks. There will be a month-long trial period, and you will not be eligible for missions in the Land of Water due to the danger for yourself and any teammates if you were. Testing will commence in 2 days at Training Ground 15. Someone will show you where that is. Hinata's hand practically blurred into the air as she responded. I'll do it. If that is alright with you, Hokage-sama. A bright embarrassed flush was on Hinata's face for the first time since Naruto and Kurenai had helped her build her confidence. Haku lightly giggled at the look on the slightly younger girl's face, but stopped quickly remembering that the Hokage was in the room. The old man gave his trademarked friendly grandfather smile and nodded, glad that a prospective new ninja was already creating bonds. Very well, unless there is something not touched upon in the report, you are all free to leave. Everyone present bowed once more, before leaving. Hinata guiding Haku to the temporary living area to await her pending test. Naruto went to meet his father, ready to tell him about his successful defeat of the old swordsman and his use of the Hashiman. Everyone else returned to their own homes, most of them planning to tell their families or friends about the mission, Sasuke just to continue his right-on training. As Naruto neared his home, he heard the louder-than-usual shouts of youth that meant that Lee was training his youthfulness under Guy's directions. When Naruto finally saw the two of them, though, he froze in absolute horror. Lee had transformed from the long-haired karate gi-wearing boy he had met a year ago into a clone of Naruto's adoptive father, and no matter how much Naruto cared for his father, that wasn't an aesthetically pleasing event. Lee had always had parasitic caterpillar eyebrows like Guy's, but they seemed to grow in response to spending so much time near their superior. Naruto was certain now that the eyebrow caterpillar really did rob one of fashion sense if left unchecked, as Lee had adopted his father's terrible green spandex and orange legwarmers. There was an addition of bandages around his forearms and hands, signifying his use of the omote wrench. Unfortunately, Naruto's shock at witnessing the youthification of Lee being complete was enough to let the two matching taijutsu specialists notice him. They ran toward Naruto and gave him a massive hug of youth, complete with a beautiful ocean sunset and palm trees. Even their caterpillars twitched in glee upon seeing the youthful without being too extreme about it. Naruto was further stunned when he realized that the strange organisms even opened their eyes and winked at him. My son! It is a most youthful day to see you return from battle. Guy's enthusiastic shouts were soon followed by Lee's, who had come to look at Naruto and Guy as family in the last year. Naruto-kun, I heard you took a C rank and then when you got back you left again. Tell us of your youthful adventures. Naruto just gazed at the strange genjutsu surrounding him, knowing that he couldn't dispel it. If he and his father shared a youthful embrace without Lee, the scenery was instead a waterfall with leaves blowing in an imaginary wind around them. Guy and Lee set Naruto down, and waited for him to recover from his youth-induced stupor. When he regained complete awareness, he related the story of his defeat of a former seven swordsman, and his becoming hailed as the hero of Wave. He also confessed to having needed both the help of Kurenai and the Hashiman to beat Kushimaru, and his use of the Kyuubi to defeat the thugs that remained. He even looked down in shame as he explained that he had used a kinjutsu from the Forbidden Scroll to kill all of the thugs. Guy sighed at the end of the story, one of his brief flashes of intelligence burning clearly into view. I knew that you would most likely need to kill someone one day, but I had hoped you would be older and more experienced first. Just remember, son, you did a noble thing and saved a small country from tyranny, with the help of your friends. Those thugs killed and stole and possibly worse before you finished them, and they were never going to change. Naruto nodded. He had already accepted his actions, but his father's statements eased the weight off of his shoulders. Lee looked a bit pale, his team never having killed in spite of their year of experience. The only one on his team that he thought would kill without much trouble was Niji, who was fatalistic and quite possibly homicidal. A great eternal rival, though. I think that your idea to keep the Nobari was excellent. It will increase your versatility, and thanks to your Kage Bunshin and your dedicated training, none of your other abilities will suffer. Naruto smiled. Guy had always been supportive of his idea to master many arts instead of specializing as he had. While a specialist was incredible in their field, it was a very limiting decision to pursue one discipline to the exclusion of all else. It worked best for fuinjutsu and medical ninjutsu, as specialists in these arts often were not sent into combat. Taijutsu specialists were disadvantaged by many other specialists, but they had advantages of their own. Ninjutsu and genjutsu specialists outranged them significantly, as did those who focused on throwing weapons and kusarigama-jutsu. Kenjutsu users and bojutsu users didn't have quite as much of an advantage, but they still had the edge in reach. Taijutsu specialists didn't need the chakra levels or control that those who relied on the other main disciplines did, and they weren't dependent on some tool like a weapons specialist. Specializing in weapons and running out due to unforeseen difficulty or running out of chakra weren't among the top concerns of the taijutsu master. The only concerns they had were building strength for striking power and speed for defense. Naruto had chosen the most difficult possible path, becoming a master of every shinobi art. Only medical techniques were beyond his reach, as the Kyuubi's toxic chakra would damage anyone but him more than it would heal them, and he would need to master its powers to keep them from bleeding into his own techniques. Of course, no one could claim to have mastered every facet, not even the Sandaime Hokage, who reputedly knew every single technique attributed to Konoha shinobi. There was even an old story which claimed that, while incapable of utilizing the correct energies for the technique, he knew the mechanics for the Nidaime's original ninjutsu version of the Hiraishin. Changing one's chakra nature to set anchors with pure power and instantaneously transporting to them was essentially impossible, or would have been if the Nidaime hadn't been able to naturally activate time/space manipulation. In short, the Yandaime's Hiraishin was better because it was less chakra intensive and didn't require a unique change in chakra nature. The seal he used had taken care of the nature change for him, while the location of the kunai with the seals were his anchors, but rather than being forced into existence with high-density power, they were linked via the finesse of the calligraphy used to create them. The seal formulae he put down through touch was a modified version of the Nidaime's original, the formula changed from Senju Tobarama's first creation. That was what the Sandaime had told Naruto, anyway. He remembered then that he was with Lee and his father, and awkwardly scratched his head as he looked back at them. "You look tired, son. The only ways to cure exhaustion are youthful training binges and sleep. Join Lee and I in practice, and I will teach you how to activate the Kyuman. The Chunin exams are coming next month after all." Naruto's attention returned fully to his father. He was ready for more training. "Yugao, I wanted to ask you for a favor." Kurenai was in her living room speaking with a woman with long purple hair. Her upper arm bore an Anbu tattoo and her body was possibly a match to Kurenai's. She wore the standard uniform of the Black Ops division she worked for, with a longer than average sword for a shinobi her height at her side. It would get in the way on her back while she was sitting. The Anbu captain looked interestedly at her friend, one of the few serious kunoichi around her age. Well, you aren't one to ask for favors, Kurenai. Not like Anko, she barely goes a week without asking me to request she be the interrogator for a captive." She was serious. Kurenai hadn't asked her for any favors in the number of years the two had known one another. Whatever she wanted must have been important. "My student, Naruto, killed Kurire Kushimaru and has claimed the Nuabari. I can't teach him Kenjutsu though, and was hoping you might be able to spare a few lessons for him." Yugao had not been expecting to hear that a 12-year-old had killed a member of the Seven Swordsmen, nor that Konoha's Jinchuriki was the wielder of one of their legendary blades. She recovered from her shock with an amused, almost coy glance. "Isn't Naruto the name of that jailbait boyfriend of yours?" The surprised blush on Kurenai's face had the young captain laughing so hard little tears appeared in the corners of her eyes. "He is my student, Yugao. I am not engaged in that type of relationship. Who would even tell you something like that?" The slight stutter marring Kurenai's first sentence just redoubled Yugao's laughter. Even though tomorrow she would be completely stoic and back on duty, she got to just be a woman speaking with an old friend today. Kurenai managed to fight her blush back off her face, still stunned that Yugao would think her capable of having an affair with a 12-year-old. If anyone shouldn't speak about that type of thing, it's her. "I never dated any of my senseis before." Of course, Kurenai had never dated anyone before. She had been far too focused on her career, Genjutsu mastery being a slow road to promotion in most circumstances. She had only made Jounin a few months before she had gained her team. Yugao finally managed to answer Kurenai's query when she regained her breath. "Anko did, of course. You should know that she is the only person we both talked to." Kurenai faintly remembered accidentally referring to Naruto as cute when drinking with Anko once, which had led to her moving from being a light social drinker to a teetotaler. The next day she had been woken up by Anko in a henge looking like a shirtless Naruto. Easily the most awkward morning of her life. Yugao had managed to consider the idea while laughing, and since Hate was busy for a while, she supposed she didn't have anything better to do during her day off. Some ANBU used to receive 2 days off a week, before the Uchiha military police had been destroyed. It was only due to her shining record and meteoric rise through the ranks that she had one every week, rather than the standard every other week. Alright, I guess I can help your boy toy out a little, but he will need to fight differently with that sword than I do with mine. It favors thrust, and can be used at range because of its wire. Kurenai left her indignant thoughts behind when Yugao agreed. She only hoped Naruto would be able to learn to effectively wield the sword quickly. She planned to enter her team in the Chunin Exams. First, she would have to catch up with her other students' training. They had never stayed behind to ask her questions or receive more training like Naruto had. A woman with pupilless honey eyes and purple spiked hair walked up the steps to the Hokage's office. Hers short skirt and fishnet top turned heads, though when people saw who they were looking at most quickly turned away. Mitarashi Enko was playing with some kunai in the pocket of her large trench coat, wondering what she was being called up for today. Last time had been because a wealthy and influential merchant had accused her of mentally scarring his daughter, who had espoused wanting to leave the family business and be a kunoichi after seeing the beautiful TNI member. The sandaime had called her in, told her what happened, and then waited for her to finish laughing. The merchant had been practically frothing at the mouth in anger, but the Enko merely said TP have told the girl her job when she'd been asked. It wasn't every day someone wanted to speak civilly with her. The sandaime just told the man that his daughter could be a kunoichi if she wanted to, and proceeded to dismiss him from the room and ignore him as he shouted on his way out. Too bad she couldn't remember the girl's name. She had apparently become a kunoichi and had been the best in her year. Maybe she should ask Kurenai when she got back from her trip to Wave. The presence of the Hokage's office door brought Enko from her thoughts, the soft command to enter carrying through. The sandaime usually wasn't waiting so eagerly for visitors that he actually used his skills to detect incoming shinobi. He had too much paperwork for that. When Enko opened the door, the old man wasn't even frowning, which might have been the first time he wasn't when she was called in. Maybe Danzo had stopped resisting her attempts to gain promotion or something. Sit down, Enko-chan. Hiruzen's ability to make people like him had only increased as he aged, his wise eyes and kind smile typically making anyone he talked to think of family. Enko, however, was immune. What did you need, Hokage-sama? You are in too good a mood for me to be the subject of a lawsuit again. His smile only widened. He loved bantering with some of his ninja. He had enjoyed bantering with Kakashi at first, but his excuses for being late just got worse as he aged. Ah yes, Tenten-chan's father was very unhappy she decided to be a kunoichi. Her obsession with Tsunade-chan, and you strikes me as more odd than an adventurous spirit though. Enko sighed. She was on her way to get some dango when an ANBU had told her to come to the office. I didn't call you here to wax nostalgic about old bouts with paperwork though. A new kunoichi prospect with the Hayatan Kekkai Genkai needs to be tested for rank in 2 days. The venue is Training Ground 15. You will test her. Enko didn't even think that the Hayatan was even still around. Where was she found? Kurenai's team brought her back from Wave. She had been serving Momochi Zabuza. Enko assumed she had been either poisoned or surprised to be taken down, or that Kurenai had done it since Kakashi outclassed her Ravenet friend. Obviously he would take Zabuza, but she would get the story from Kurenai when she visited her later, curiosity temporarily overpowering hunger for dango. Is testing her my only goal? Yes, although if she is where I believe her to be, I was hoping you would teach her. You are the best kunoichi in the village to teach ninjutsu, and most Kekkai Genkai clans have high chakra pools. Enko frowned at the idea of teaching. Her own sensei had permanently made her wary of the idea, mostly because she didn't want to teach anyone that pale-faced pedo bastard's techniques. Even if they were really good. I will consider it after I meet her and test her. If you think I'm best to teach her, I'll at least give it a thought. A smile was the response she got as she left to visit her best friend. So Haku, what do you think of Konoha? The ice maiden turned to look at her companion. Hinata had barely left her side since she had woke up back in Wave. She had also done everything she could both to ease Haku's pain from losing Zabuza and to convince her to join Konoha. Without the slightly younger girl's help, she probably would have just finished herself. Haku noticed that Hinata seemed almost desperate for approval, most likely hoping that Haku was satisfied that she had followed Hinata's advice in coming to Konoha. Many people turned to glance at the two preteens from both genders, jealous of not being with either of them. Haku had chosen to wear her favorite pink kimono and her thin choker when they entered the village. Her long dark hair, soft brown eyes, and slim, athletic body led many to blush when they saw her, both male and female. While Haku's features were clearly feminine, as was her voice, it seemed that even people here in Konoha would be unable to tell her gender. Haku was nervous though. She was unused to all the eyes on her, and she was being seen with a Hyuga. Everyone knew that since the fall of the Senju and Uchiha, the Hyuga were practically royalty in Konoha. It seems just as nice as you promised, though I don't know how long it will take for me to get used to so many eyes on me. Hinata smiled brightly. She had spent much time with Haku in the past week, and was glad she liked her new home. Once the battle at the bridge had ended, Hinata found herself remembering the odd feelings that stirred when she watched Haku. She hoped to at least be friends with the last Yuki, even if her new friend wasn't attracted to her. Hinata had decided that the best way to understand what she thought about Haku would be to ask Kurenai and remain in Haku's presence as much as possible. Her own sensei had stirred something similar, though that had just been a form of admiration. Kurenai was beautiful, and Hinata wanted to be. Naruto had caused that same feeling. He was strong and never gave up or went back on his word, and she took strength from his example. Haku, on the other hand, caused her cheeks to heat and her stomach to feel strange. Maybe it was just because she had used her Byakugan to see what her gender was under her clothes, which had been her dark, loose-fitting battle clothes. Being the first non-relative she had seen naked might be the cause of her embarrassment. So she stayed, and tried to see if it lessened over time. It hadn't, and when she had asked Kurenai, she had only responded by saying, "I've never had any experience with what you're asking, but it sounds the same as how a friend describes her feeling for her fiancé." That had been the last nail in the coffin of Hinata's previous assumptions towards her sexuality. She just hoped that she would prove strong enough that her father wouldn't care. Artificial insemination existed. Many of the donors were powerful ninja hoping to spread their legacy that had no clans. Jiraiya of the Sannin had once donated twice a week. "I'm glad, Haku. Come on, I'll show you where to get the best cinnamon buns in the whole world." Haku giggled as Hinata's excited side came forth as she spoke of her obsession. "You know, I would like if you call me Haku-chan. We are friends now, right? I've never really had a friend before, so I don't know exactly." Hinata turned and stared at Haku for a few moments before she responded. "We are definitely friends, Haku-chan." A remnant of Hinata's shyness showed through as she blushed a little using the affectionate honorific. Both of them smiled before Haku allowed herself to be pulled forward. Every group having similar thoughts, wondering just what the future would bring. Team 8 had gathered in their usual training ground at 9 o'clock sharp. There was also a guest in the training ground, a surprise to everyone but Kurenai. "Team, this is ANBU Agent Nico. She is here to help Naruto with his Kenjutsu training. Meanwhile, I will focus more heavily on training you too." She pointed at Hinata and Shino as she said this, wishing that either of them would have taken her up on her offer of extra training. On the few days when Naruto left without training individually with her, either of her other students took advantage of her bonus training. Naruto remembered Kurenai saying she would ask an ANBU friend of hers to help him, but he didn't think she would show up the first day back from Wave. From what he could see, she had a figure just a tad slimmer than his sensei's, and long purple hair. With her face covered and her yet to speak, there was no way for him to guess her age, though he assumed she was likely close in age to Kurenai. "Naruto-san, follow me to a separate clearing and we will begin your instruction." Nico turned and began tree jumping to move to this other area, and Naruto spared a quick wave to his team before following. The moment he was out of sight, Kurenai turned to her remaining students to discuss ways to enhance their training. "Hinata, Shino, can you tell me where you are in your clan training? Aside from chakra control and teamwork, I haven't done much for you, even if either of you ever asked for my help." Shino answered first, a possible twinge of regret in his voice. "I have completed the Mushi Bunshin and Mushidama techniques, and am currently attempting to master the Mushi Jamingu no Jutsu." Hinata followed after Shino, wishing she had made as much progress as he had. "I learned the hack, Sanjuni Sho, but I haven't been able to learn any of the more powerful Juken techniques." Kurenai frowned. Unlike Guy, she didn't really know much taijutsu. A smile replaced the frown as she remembered just who the third member of her team was, though she wanted to kick herself for never asking Naruto to help Hinata with her taijutsu. "Well, Hinata, I might not be able to help your taijutsu too much, but if you ask Naruto, I'm sure he'll help." Hinata nodded. If she could get better at the Juken, then her father might be nicer to her, and she would be of more help to her team. "Shino, Hinata, I'll help you too with anything I can. If there is anything you two would like to learn from me, I will teach you." Both considered her words. Shino knew he would never be capable of high-ranking ninjutsu because of his Kikeichu, but learning a few mid-ranked jutsu might help. Hinata preferred the idea of genjutsu, and if she had the time, maybe even medical ninjutsu. She would need her father's approval to learn the medical techniques at the moment though, as Kurenai didn't know them. "Sensei, I believe it would be best for me to discover my elemental affinity, so I have options in case my hive are wiped out or we are in an environment they have trouble in. I won't be a powerhouse like Naruto, but I may be able to surprise enemies that expect an Aburaim to use nothing but insects." Kurenai nodded and pulled out a slip of chakra paper. Kakashi had handed her some on the way back from Wave. Shino took it and channeled some chakra, and was so surprised his eyebrow twitched when he saw his result. Among the Aburaim, most people that checked their affinity had Doton chakra. Shino's paper had combusted and burned quickly to ash when he had tried. An Aburaim that used non-clan ninjutsu was rare. An Aburaim that had Katon chakra was unheard of. Shino's analytical mind came up with a massive positive in his nature immediately, however. If he changed his chakra to be Katon chakra and fed a few generations of bugs with that, they would gain a massive resistance to the ultimate enemy of an Aburame, flames. Hinata considered asking for a chakra test as well, but Kurenai handed her a slip before she made a decision. Even if you don't use ninjutsu, it is interesting to know what your chakra nature is. You may decide to test for jounin, and if you do, you must display skill in at least 2 disciplines. I became proficient with right-hand techniques just for my test. Hinata nodded before using her paper. It crumpled into a ball that bounced on her hand with the force it had generated. Hinata was glad that she had the same nature as her sensei. This way she wouldn't need permission if she wanted to learn techniques. She still thought that asking Naruto about her taijutsu would be more important than learning ninjutsu though. Shino just wondered if there were any katan jutsu he could use with his low reserves. Katan techniques were often said to be highest in destructive potential and chakra cost, but he hoped there were a few that were precise and only moderately taxing. I think I'll mess with Kurenai's little toy before I get to the training. She should have known I would tease him. Why else would I agree to work on my day off? Naruto and his new Kenjutsu tutor were standing across from one another in the same clearing that he had fought Kurenai during the team test. He wondered for a moment how she could have known about it, but realized that Kurenai must have been happy they had passed and told her friends about the way the test went. So, Nico-sensei, what should I be doing? First, I want to talk with you a little about Kurenai. The stoic voice that had commanded him to follow was gone, replaced with a harsh tone that bespoke anger. Why, is there something she wanted you to say to me? Naruto congratulated himself on not letting his nervousness with the subject show. If one of his sensei's close friends figured out the crush he had on Kurenai, the rest of his life as a genin would be incredibly awkward. Nico could see his slight shift in posture as he spoke though, and found his nervousness about the situation hilarious. No, I need to know your intentions for my friend before I will actually train you. So, what do you see her as? While phrased as a question, it was obviously a command, and Naruto just hoped that he would be able to lie convincingly. She is my sensei and my friend. Kurenai is one of my most precious people. At least this way he wasn't technically lying, he knew that he was terrible at doing so. Not what I expected to hear, but I don't think he's being honest. It takes more than just an innocent face to lie to an AMBU. I guess I'll just test him a little. That is really too bad. Kurenai constantly talks about her cutest student. She even mentioned a little something about a dream or two. Naruto froze. He just couldn't comprehend what she was saying. Kurenai likes me? She dreams about me? Nico smirked behind her mask. She knew she had him now. Just one more push and he would break and tell the truth. I really hope that your callous rejection doesn't break her poor heart. She's never even had a crush before now. As Naruto started hyperventilating, the smirk behind her mask grew into a full-blown maniacal grin. He would confess any second and she would have even more material to split with Anko to tease Kurenai with. I really like Kurenai-sensei too. I just never thought she would feel the same. I mean, she's nearly a decade older than me. I didn't care, but I always thought that she would never see me as more than a student. Oh, I have no idea if she sees you that way or not. She just blushes adorably any time Anko or I accuse her of wanting to rob your cradle. Naruto looked away from what must have been his sadist of a tutor. She would tell Kurenai and then Kurenai would start treating him differently. He felt so ashamed that he had just believed her no problem like that. It was just like Mizuki, except she hadn't had years to build his trust as his teacher. Kurenai had just said she was friends with her, and that was enough for Naruto. Nico's grin dimmed. As she saw the shame and blush of embarrassment show on his face, she felt just a little sorry that she had tricked him like that. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell Kurenai about this. I was just curious because she's my friend. Naruto brought his face back up to lock eyes with the small slits in the cat mask his tutor wore. Well, now that's been taken care of, why don't you pull out that sword so I can start teaching you? The promise that his secret would stay secret and that he would still get his training was enough to bring Naruto out of his slight depression. Meanwhile, all of the other jounin were busy with their own teams. Kakashi had convinced Sakura through some hardcore training that she needed to increase her physical abilities and stop dieting. Really, he just told Sasuke he would teach him a new jutsu if he would tell Sakura to do that, but it worked anyway. Sasuke was soaking up some of Kakashi's mini jutsu like a sponge with the Sharingan, and Kiba began working on techniques aside from his clan moves. Kakashi had Pakin help Akamaru with his abilities, and even show him how to keep his paws soft and supple with all the training they did. Asuma had heard about the chewing out that Kakashi had got for not training his students, and shaped up his own training before he could be invited for a spar with his old man. Shikamaru had mastered the academy basic taijutsu style with Naruto's help during their last year there, but rarely ever got close enough to an opponent to use it. None of the genin Ino Shikacho really had anything but clan techniques to work with, and Asuma assumed that he would just help them with their chakra control and physical conditioning. Especially Ino, who had all the stamina and physical abilities of a leaf. Guy continued training Lee as much as possible, while Niji trained himself due to his belief that he was naturally superior to his sensei, who had been a terrible student in the academy. Guy constantly offered to help both Niji and Tenten train, but neither of them ever seemed to want to. Tenten trained her weapon throwing and minor fuinjutsu skills, not investing any of her training in close-range fighting. Her teammates both specialized in close combat, and she didn't believe it was necessary for her to learn any close-range weapon techniques or further her taijutsu past the academy training. It vexed Guy that only one of his students was willing to train like Lee. Niji would never be able to beat Lee in a fight if Lee actually removed his weights and used the Hashiman. The superiority complex common among the Hyuga had its poster child in Niji, with a firmly entrenched belief in fatalism as a side dish. Tenten just didn't see a purpose in training more than her weapons, even though Guy warned her that there would be opponents that her style would be ineffective against. She would just claim that was why she had teammates. GSI knew he would enter them in an exam that featured one-on-one combat in the final, but he wasn't allowed to tell them of the tests beforehand. The next day, Haku's test took place right after team training had finished for Team 8. Hinata had asked everyone to come and show their support for her new friend. Enko stood and took up her stance for the Hibi style, fingers pointed and thumbs drawn back to mimic fangs. Haku drew a saban in her right hand and left her off hand-free. Nico had agreed to act as the outside judge while Enko would be the main tester. The masked woman raised one hand, before with a shout of Hajime. The combat began. Enko launched herself at Haku with high Chunin speed, holding back enough to test her young opponent fairly. Haku made a few quick hand signs and a number of needles condensed from the air. They launched at Enko, who weaved through them and launched a quick pressure point strike at Haku's shoulder. The former apprentice of the Demon of the Mist managed to dodge, and made a hand seal no one had been expecting. Both hands held with fingers rolled to the palms save the index and middle, one hand center chest and the other vertical above the head. Ninpo, Kirigakure no Jutsu. Mist rolled from the edge of the forest adjoined with the grounds. Enko looked around, worried that her opponent might have had more training from Zabuza than she first thought. That was until a second shout reverberated through the mist. Hayatan Hijitsu, Makio Hyosho. The mist surrounding Enko's position formed into a dome of ice mirrors, a reflection of Haku in all of them. Unlike the Uchiha, you have no Sharingan to put me to sleep. Surrender. Enko whistled, impressed at Haku's ingenuity in forming the mirrors without giving away her plan by first setting up the mist as obscuring agent. I might not be able to hypnotize you with eye contact, but that doesn't mean that your jutsu is unbeatable. Doton, Morigekyo no Jutsu. After a single hand seal, Enko dove under the ground and avoided the spray of saban that flew to her position. She erupted from the ground holding her hands in a new seal, before she used one of her best elemental jutsu. Katon, Karya Enden. The dragon-shaped blast of flame had both the heat and kinetic force to smash the mirror it struck, stunning Haku as she had never had one of her mirrors broken before. Haku's reflection disappeared from all but one of the mirrors, in which she stared at Enko with one hand blurring in rapid seals. I wasn't expecting one-handed seals, this girl is Chunin material. The only things holding her back are a lack of offensive jutsu, taijutsu, and lack of jutsu not derived from her Kekkei Genkai Hayatan, Hizatsu Hyosho. All of the mirrors save the one Haku was using as a shield turned into large crystalline spears that blurred in their rush to strike Enko. She simply dove underground again, rising behind Haku's position and depositing an exploding tag on her mirror. The explosion shattered the mirror and knocked Haku unconscious. The shockwave had been enough to force her down, but thankfully staying in the mirror had lessened her expected injuries. Enko bent over Haku's still form with some smelling salts in her hand, leading a groaning Haku back to the realm of consciousness. Congratulations, little girl, you just made Chunin. You and I are gonna be speaking with the Hokage later to determine exactly what to do. I must say, that ice dome thing you do would have been a surefire way to win if I couldn't just dive underground to escape it. You should probably freeze the ground to keep that from happening next time. While upset with the level of techniques that this woman had used, Hinata was ecstatic that Haku was good enough to be a Chunin already. Maybe she would get to call her Haku-senpai from now on. Teammate looked at the blush on Hinata's face before deciding it wasn't important, and that they should go congratulate their newest comrade. Hinata noticed that everyone started walking away and hurried to catch up, determined to be first to congratulate Haku on her performance. Congratulations, Haku-chan. Maybe I should say Haku-senpai now that you outranked me though. Hinata blushed as she hugged her friend. She knew she wanted to talk with Haku about her feelings, but she just couldn't throw off some doubts since she knew it was rare for people of the same gender to develop feelings like this. The mixture of her home treatment and her situation was causing doubts that Haku would like her the same way. Haku smiled and returned the hug, glad that her best and first real friend was here for her. Yes, congratulations, Haku-san. Kurenai and Shino said together, Naruto the same but without the honorific. Haku and Hinata broke their hug so that she could respond to the rest of her audience. It meant a lot to Haku that Hinata would try as hard as she did to get her friends to get to know her better. She was certain that at least Naruto and Kurenai would be friends with her, even if Shino was a little unsociable. Thank all of you, especially you Hinata Kohai, I know you convinced them to come. A coy smile lit up on Haku's face when she responded, playing along with Hinata's little game. The blush on Hinata's face grew that her new secret wish was being fulfilled a little, slightly less than innocent fantasies playing in her head. Everyone left to do their own thing as Hinata went through things that probably weren't legal in the land of fire. Eventually she snapped out of her reverie and went to her own home, embarrassed that she once again spaced out. Haku and Anko had stayed together as the group split, heading to the Hokage's office. This time the Sandaime was busy enough that they had to knock to get admittance. As they walked into the room, either were able to see the Hokage. I'm over here, behind the stacks of paperwork. Both turned and looked in shock as the desk had so many papers on it that the old man was invisible in his sitting position. Anko shook off her surprise and made her report to the Hokage, Yugao's opinion unnecessary as the two agreed on Haku's ranking. Hokage-sama, Yuki Haku has officially passed my test and I recommend her to be instated at the Chunin level. Hiruzen nodded his head thoughtfully, wondering over whether or not his newest plan would work. Very well, now tell me, have you considered my other offer? There are bonuses in it I am sure you are aware of. Anko knew that he was talking about becoming Haku's teacher, but she couldn't think of any bonuses that would come with taking the position. She also knew she couldn't really take the position, as only Jounin could take apprentices. She smirked when she finally figured out what the wily old bastard was trying to tell her, without giving away his plan in case others were listening. She knew from speaking with Yugao that Hiruzen complained almost as much about the hell he got for letting Guy adopt Naruto as he did about paperwork. Yes, and I have decided to accept, even if the little girl doesn't want me to. Haku looked at Anko nervously, hoping that Anko called someone other than her little girl. Very well. Haku, from today on you are the Chunin apprentice of newly minted full Jounin Mitarashi Anko. Your flak jacket will be delivered later. Anko will speak with you about your schedule for training, and once this month draws to a close, your mission assignment will be done with her as well. Dismissed. Haku hoped she would never pick up any of her sensei's already revealed habits, either dressing in a jacket over pretty much nothing else or laughing maniacally would suit her very well. A young boy dashed past Naruto on his way home, screaming his head off about a pink-haired demon trying to kill him. He would have ignored it if Sakura hadn't run by chasing the poor child. Apparently the definition of demon was very different among this boy and most of Konoha. Naruto followed after them in the hope he might be able to help the boy. He heard a dull thud and a shout of "Hey, watch it!" just before he turned the corner. Standing in front of him was one of the most bizarrely dressed people Naruto had seen, which was disturbing considering he had seen the abominable duo that were his father and Lee. The boy was Naruto's age, maybe a year older. He was wearing black footy pajamas? With built-in cat ears? And was his face covered in purple lipstick? How could it have even been legal to go around dressed like that? Even a neon orange jumpsuit with blue trim would be more suitable for public wear. Ignoring the odd shiver that went through his body with that thought, Naruto spoke up to stop the pajama man from attacking the child in his hands. You know, attacking children is against the law, particularly clan children. If I have been to the Hokage's office ever when there is little enough paperwork on the desk to see the pictures on it, that boy is the Sandaime's grandson. The possible cross-dresser sneered, his makeup only making the facial expression uglier. My father is the Kazekage, why should I care about this kid's family? A blonde girl standing behind him that had gone unnoticed due to her obnoxious and revoltingly garbed teammate took a step forward and clobbered him over the head with an iron bar. Moron, the son of the Kazekage attacking the grandson of the Hokage would be an international disaster. Are you trying to make father angry? The mentioning of his father being upset would have been more than enough to get the boy to drop his victim, but his pride was still wounded and another target had presented itself to his anger. Fine, but I bet you aren't related to your Hokage. How about I just smash you instead? Naruto only barely restrained the laugh that threatened to break with the mentioning of him being related to a Kage, but a new voice came into the alley and stopped the impending doom for the Catman. Kankuro, shut up. A swirl of sand came to life, before falling to the ground as a redhead came from it. He had the kanji for love tattooed on his forehead, dark rings around his eyes, and a giant gourd on his back. Jigara, he started. No he didn't, I'd been here the whole time. Are you trying to lie to me now? Kankuro's face paled, his former defiant attitude erased as if it had never happened. The newcomer, Gaara, turned to the blonde, allowing Naruto time for a second look at her. Her sandy blonde hair was pulled into four tails that stood out from the back of her head. Her bar was strapped to her back again, Naruto coming to the conclusion it was a war fan when he saw the Sunigekure headband around her neck. She had a white dress and was mildly attractive, about the same age as Haku he guessed. You were supposed to keep him in check, Temari. Next time either of you annoys me, I'll kill you. There was an edge of bloodlust that Naruto could hear even with Gaara's monotone voice. The short redhead turned to face him, an odd spark in his eyes. Forgive my worthless siblings, they will not bother anyone else if they want to live. Now, tell me your name. While not the most polite way to find out a name, Naruto already knew all of theirs, and the girl hadn't done anything to earn his ire. My name is Meito Naruto, son of the glorious green beast of Konoha. Gaara nodded, but Sakura spoke up for the first time since the encounter started, Naruto's appearance settling her nerves slightly. Wait. You may be from Suna, but even allies from other villages must give their reason for being here. Temari answered this time, Gaara apparently not thinking it worth his time to do so. You don't know anything, do you, girlie? The Chunin exams are starting next month, and we came here early so we have time to acclimate to the climate before it starts. She turned and left with her brothers, both of whom seemed to have some mental issues. Naruto had stopped listening when he heard Chunin exams, promising himself that he would pass them his first time around and make his father and Kurenai proud. He ran to redouble his training, sending some Kage Bunshin home to look through the scrolls that read secret weapons. No way was he going in unprepared. What if Naruto become Beast Tamer Chunin exams? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.